Yeah.
Je sens le pressure ou pas?
No,
Actually,
I've done a couple of these.
facts. I'm still a noob at this podcast.
What?
Whose podcast?
Fucking nobody's. Nobody's. No, but I do a lot. Like I have to film a lot of trainings and stuff, and I have to film like
From work.
yeah. So we did at work once. We filmed like a 30-minute like training on sales, and it was like live with like maybe there was like 150 people there.
On the spot.
Yeah, 150, 200 people there.
Oh shit.
Like watching. It was like live, you know, it was like a podcast. So I did that, and then I did one podcast that with Mike a long time ago.
Raymond.
Yeah.
Mhm.
And then I did like two other podcasts. I think only one of them actually was posted, and then one other was never posted. And then I did the fighter interviews and shit.
Facts.
So I'm used to the camera and the lights and the fans.
Freaking disgusting.
Disgusting. Yeah.
Fair enough. Moi, je suis encore un peu sous pressure, pas te mentir.
Are we loud enough like this?
Yeah, I think so.
Yeah.
Just Brian.
Should I speak up?
No, you is fine. As long as you speak.
As long as I say something.
Somewhat assertively.
Okay.
Somewhat assertively is fine. Me
With
and
my
Brian,
chest.
Where do we start? Introduce your big host there.
No, you're big guest. I think.
Aziz Rodrigues. Mais tout le monde le connaît.
A man who needs no introduction.
T'as compris ou pas?
Oh yeah, the whole thing's videoed, eh? On YouTube? Oh, so I shouldn't look like a bum.
No, that's the thing. You just be yourself.
It's crazy how we're like the same height right now. Even though you got like a foot on me.
You look at
It's still, bro, your ass is off the chair. Bro, literally. Your tail,
stop, bro.
your lower back is where your ass should be right now.
Look at this whole gap
That's fucked up.
of like nothing.
Bro, your belly button's under the table. That's crazy.
That's still like a professional.
Look how much taller, bro. It's crazy.
Parce que moi, je suis un gars de humility. I don't like to look taller than I like to be even to my guests, tu vois.
That's funny.
So, yeah. Scott Rodrigues. Pro fighter 2-0. My best friend.
Oh, touched.
Comme un big brother. Been around the scene amateur aussi. Long time he's been a name. Il est gentil. Il est cute. Il est... Yeah, not business owner. It's not COO. It's not business.
COO. Yeah.
COO.
I'm part owner.
C'est un double agent. Tu comprends? If he's not fighting, he has the suit. If he doesn't have the suit, he does the fighting. Tu comprends? Back and forth and back and forth. You know how it is, man. No, we don't know how it is. You know how it is.
I know how it is.
Crazy. Moi, je dis on commence how we met.
First rule, only English. No
You're down.
French. No French.
For you.
I'm just saying, you said a sentence in French. I take personal offense to that. No French. If I'm on the podcast, it's English only. Any French listeners, fuck off. You're not welcome here.
You don't need.
You don't need the French viewers. Only English.
Fair. If I want to go international, c'est vrai. It's true. It's English.
Nah, I'm gonna make some enemies with that one.
Yeah, hard. Surtout ici, Quebec. It's gone.
These fucking Lego lovers over here. Not welcome on the Riyadh podcast.
Fair enough. He makes the rules.
Yeah.
Let's start with how we met. You still remember the story how we met?
Yes.
I think your version is funnier.
Yes, I remember. You came in for a trial class. I was working at the front desk at the time at the gym because I was climbing my way to the top. I had humble beginnings.
You were amateurs? Yeah, you already had like...
didn't have any MMA fights, only kickboxing. Or maybe I had one MMA fight where I got whooped.
Your first one. I came, then you had it. You were getting ready for it when I signed up.
Correct.
Yeah.
Correct. So I had no MMA fights. I had boxing, kickboxing, and I was working the front desk, humble beginnings, taking, selling gym memberships.
Yeah.
And you came in. I remember you came in to try the class, and I'm like, okay, fair play. We have to do free trials. And then as we walk to the back, I'm like giving you the tour of the gym. And Brian, keep in mind, I just met you, like no idea who you are, nothing like that. You're just some random, kid that came in, and and then you like look around. It's so real too. You like stop me. We're like walking around and showing you the gym. You like stop. You like look around. You like look to see if anyone's on. Between me and you, bro, I want to go all the way. I'm serious about this. I want to go pro. I'm gonna be a world champion. And I'm like, all right, bro, sure. Fucking start by trying a class, I guess. Bro, but it's just like the craziest thing. Like day one was the same. Bro, literally the first. You hadn't even tried yet. It was before the trial. Like I was showing you the weight room. I was showing you the mats.
I just walked in like 3 minutes.
It's because I asked you if you wanted to try the cardio or the sport. I'm like, the cardio is more for a workout. Like that's if you want to learn how to fight. And I said, that's if you want to learn how to fight is the sport class. And you're like, between me and you, bro, I want to be a world champion. I'm going all the way.
The only thing missing was the hand rope.
Yeah. Between me, yeah.
Bro, how I
That
didn't
was funny.
change.
That
Oh
was
my
classic.
gosh.
And then I completely forgot about that until, because then obviously you started training, whatever. But then like a year or 2 years later was when I remembered that story. When I was like, oh fuck, that's so true. That was Riyadh. Like in my head it was someone else. Like when you first meet somebody, and then you like grow with them, and then they don't feel like the same person.
Yeah.
In my head there was always someone else, and then it was like I think it was Kira that reminded me, or someone we were talking. Like that's crazy. You still say the same shit to this day.
It's weird.
It was just so like theatric. That was the best part.
Yeah.
How bad was your posture?
It's like main character syndrome,
How bad it was?
How bad was his posture?
Bro, I was looking down at him.
That's great. I was gonna say maybe today is worse than what it was back then. But for him to say that,
he had to get on his tippy toes to like whisper in my ear that he wants to be world champion, because his neck was hanging down like this.
Oh man. Oh, is that bad?
No,
I had less confidence back then.
You were
for
17.
sure.
Like,
Yeah, I was 17.
I always remember you as taller.
No, that's what I was about to say. I actually think you had better. I was joking. I think you had better posture then. I remember you having a longer neck than you do now.
It's from grappling, I'm sure.
But also, you're much skinnier. Now you have more muscle, a little bit more muscle around here. But back then, I remember, bro, like,
is that no traps?
you were like all neck.
Yeah, all
Yeah.
neck. Oh.
And you had no facial hair.
Oh
So it
my
was like,
gosh.
It was like neck and then mouth and then nose. It was
No
classic.
chin.
No.
It was before the goatee.
Yeah.
Ugh, disgusting.
Yeah.
And then what's my funny story? Right, I don't know if it was that same day. Is it that day where you let me try every class?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. You did the kickboxing. No. 5:30. Yeah, kickboxing, wrestling, and then grappling. Yes.
Okay. Here's how it goes next. Okay. I start the kickboxing class. I do it. I had a lot of fun. Next was wrestling, and then perfectly enough, Scott was training, so I pair up with him. We do moves.
We paired up on the first wrestling class.
Watch.
It makes sense, honestly.
Watch.
Okay. I don't remember
laugh.
This is news for me.
Yeah.
First time.
we do moves, and then you were saying how like that was like a me thing, because I'm just like doing reps upon reps upon reps. But in my head, that's how it is, because I see wrestling videos and stuff. These guys are repping and repping. I'm like, oh, I gotta do the same full grind. And we finish the class, do the fighting, and then I say thank you to Scott. I sit in my corner, I'm exhausted. I turn back, and then I see you talking to you. And I'm like, and I get so confused. It was Shiloh.
Yeah.
And that's when, bro, my mind was boggled.
That's classic.
Yeah, oh, it was the best. And then
he had fights at that point.
No.
Shiloh?
No, he only had tournaments. He
No,
was getting
Shiloh
ready for
only started like 6 months before Riyadh.
Yeah.
Yeah. Shiloh started a couple years after me.
Yeah.
But that, I remember, I thought you were going to tell this story, was with the wrestling. Because do you know what I was telling Shiloh?
No.
I remember talking about how fucking, like, I've never done that many drills in my life. I've never done that many reps in my life. Was just because, like, I'd take you down and you just, like, you're like a bag of bones and you're just like, and then just, like, bounce back up. And then we were just like, bro, I think we must have hit, like, 1,000 reps in that 1 hour. Because you were up so quick. And I'm like, fuck, this kid's first day. Like, I can't take breaks on him, you know what I mean? And like, and I told him I was a fighter, so like you're already like looking up to me a little bit.
Yeah.
Like, oh, this guy's fighting. This guy's preparing for an amateur fight. And I'm pretty sure when I went to go tell Shiloh, I was like, bro, I've never done more reps in my fucking life. I was just like single legs, and I'm pretty sure it was with Sensei too. And so
remember.
I think it was, and so with him, or
No,
I was
it
teaching.
it was Jacob.
Oh yeah,
Bukowski, yeah,
Ah,
because you were
okay.
in the front desk.
Okay.
Yeah.
But back then, our wrestling classes we would do like 2 moves.
Yeah.
It was just 2 moves, and we just rep it the whole class. And then I don't even think we wrestled a lot of times at the end of the class. Sometimes we would just rep. We'd do break falls for like 15 minutes, and then we rep like
moves,
1 to 3 moves for
and
the
then
whole
positioning.
class. Yeah.
And then a few positionings at the end.
Yeah.
Yeah. I went hard on him, bro. I went hard because to me it was you, and I was like, oh, he's the man. Oh, okay, for grind.
Yeah,
He's getting ready
classic.
for his amateur fight. Oh, you went
Yeah, I
at
remember
it.
it was those drills, and he just like hit the ground, back, and
Yeah,
you like
exactly.
bounce back up.
Oh,
And it's like,
so
when beginners don't know how to fall, so it's like as they fall all at once.
Exactly.
Like when you're doing like chest pressure, and they're like, how we like fold to the ground,
yeah.
but they just like unlev their other leg and just like fall all at once,
Yeah,
like
pro wrestling.
or like flipping a pancake, like. And I remember it was like that. I'm like, man, you have a sore neck the next day, like what?
Man, you made me feel left. You
Yeah.
gotta move it down.
By the way, for the setup, Emil is our Jamie.
Who's Jamie?
Joe Rogan.
Oh, I never watched it.
Jamie, pull it up.
Oh,
Yeah, he's
Emil,
the
pull it up.
So if you need info,
Oh, Emil,
yes,
pull it out. That's fucked up. There's kids that watch this, bro. That's crazy.
I don't know, bro.
Right.
Anyways, okay, so now,
You talked about when you guys first met.
yeah,
Let's talk about his first day.
yeah, that's what I was gonna ask.
Mm.
What was because that's a sick story too. What incited you to come to the gym?
So I don't remember my first day, but I remember the reason I started.
Yeah, that.
Because your first day training, but your first walk-in.
What prompted me to walk in. So I grew up watching like Never Back Down, Warriors, that movie. I loved UFC and I loved fighting, but me and Brian were talking about this the other day. I was like, fuck, I don't think I ever watched a UFC event, but I was like known in school for like loving the UFC. And I always loved it and always talked about it. But I'm like, I don't think I ever watched a card. Like I have no recollection of you. I think I just loved the environment and I watched the movies.
And some fighters.
Like to a point where when I was like 14, my dad bought me George St. Pierre and Matt Hughes' book. And Brian was telling me, like, good thing you didn't read Matt Hughes' book because apparently it's really fucked up and he like rapes people and shit. So
cut that people out. I didn't read it myself.
What? You said you didn't read it?
No. Yeah, because that's what I heard.
Oh.
It could be a big game of telephone. And you just, you just like smear them.
Sorry, Matt Hughes. All right, so unconfirmed. It's a bad book apparently.
Yeah.
So, anyways, I liked fighting XYZ. My brother Shiloh at the time had played in like a basketball tournament, and he won. They won like a free month at JKS. They got a bunch of prizes. That was one of them. It was a paper free month at JKS. I lived right down the street, like 2 blocks away, straight up a 2-minute walk, and I'd never seen this place because I was a very sheltered young boy. I didn't leave my house unless I was getting out of the door to the car, and my parents were driving.
Yeah.
So then Shiloh has this thing. He had it maybe for like 6 months, and he never used it. And at this time, I had just started college. I started Vanier, and Shiloh owed me money. I don't remember why, but he owed me like $200-300, which at the time was a lot of money. We're like 18 years old, and I was pissed off at him. Like, give me my fucking money, and he would never give it to me. And then one day I just said, you know what? I'm grabbing this, and I took his month at JKS. And I think he was like, he wanted to do it, so he argued, but I think he was like a little too shy secretly. Yeah. So he let me do it. He let me take it, and then I kept that in my backpack for like another 6 months. I was just like, it just like stayed in my backpack for like another 6 months. I don't know. I just had like anxiety around going into this because when you think of MMA from the movies, it's like you walk into this like cold, dark room, and like people are like, brah, brah, people are like punching each other, and you know what I mean. So I had like anxiety around it. I remember one day I was like walking home from school from Fairview, and I saw a sign, and that was the first time. Like I had the thing JKS, and I knew JKS, but I never looked it up or looked at the address. And I was like, oh, that's the place that I have the free coupon for. And I checked, and it was still in my bag. I was like, screw it, I'm gonna go in, And then so I beelined it, last minute decision. I had a little spur of confidence, and then I remember just like walking in, and it was like Sensei at the front desk, who's like a little bit older, and Carol, and then he like showed me in the back, and like Brian was in the back, and I'm like, oh, everybody looks so nice and harmless.
I think it was me.
The first, maybe you were there. Sensei was at the desk though, but you think you showed me?
I should, yeah.
Okay, cool. So then I walk in, and obviously like, you're wearing like a rubber ducky shirt probably, and I'm like, oh, this is not that scary. And then after I redeemed my free month, and then after I straight up was coming every day 4 or 5 times a week, My mom was pissed. She hated it at the time. I mean, now obviously she liked it, and she's always loved fighting, but she always had the impression that like you're overtraining, you're working too hard, you're training too hard. Like if I would stay for 2 hours, she would like trip. She's like, what? Stay for 2 hours, 2 classes? You're not supposed to do that, like.
Bro, that became
But
6.
she just thought that was like too much.
Excessive,
But
yeah.
that's what everyone does,
Yeah, exactly.
And then and I was going to college, so I'd go to school, and on my way back, I would come here, and then after my first month, then when I would come here, I'd stay here from like 4 p.m. till straight up like 9:30 p.m. And I did that every night until I moved, and then it was different. Yeah.
I think Noah had the same story. Noah Mitchell. I think he worked with us for a while. Yeah. I think he was super nervous coming to the MMA gym. He had all these ideas from pop culture.
Yeah.
And then after training, like I told him, hey, we're playing with Pokemon cards. You want to join us? And then all his fear just evaporated.
Dropped. Yeah.
He was like, oh, they're nerds.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, I feel like now MMA culture is that MMA fighters are nerds. Like boxing is still like lower income, like a little bit more, you know what I mean? But MMA culture is very much, it's very, even just when I started 10 years ago, it was very different. It wasn't as known. There wasn't as many schools. Like there's maybe 4 to 5 like MMA clubs in the West Island / Montreal.
And we were the only MMA one. All
Yeah.
the rest were like boxing.
And so it wasn't as well known.
Yeah.
Now it's like I feel like it's more well known that like MMA is kind of like people are nerdy,
Exactly.
and it's like
Yeah.
I'm not, but you guys are.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some. At least the background of the people that are doing it. Yeah. Some. What about
Yeah, those Pokemon days were crazy though.
the
It's
summers?
because Pokemon Go was a thing.
So
we
got
didn't want to
cards,
play,
yeah.
but then we got back into the cards, and then that consumed us for like a whole summer.
So much fun.
Yeah.
I played recently with Kira.
The
I
cards.
smoked her. Yeah.
No mercy.
Yeah, smoked her.
Damn. So you came in with the coupon.
Yep.
And then you're training, and I remember your dad and your brother would always come to pick you up.
Yes.
And every time I'd see him, I would hassle Shiloh. When are you training?
Yeah.
When are you training?
Yeah.
Part of me thinking that he's not gonna train.
Yeah.
Yeah. But then I guess he
So
started.
for context, Shiloh is my twin brother, so we're identical twins. So it's like perfect training partner. Like, I could just. So even me, I would try to convince. But at the time, me and Shiloh weren't as close. I don't know. We had we weren't fighting, but we just weren't close. Like I didn't talk to him.
Your schedules would just not match up there.
Yeah, well, like at the time we went to different colleges, and then when we moved from the West Island and I moved to the East End with my mom, he stayed with my dad in Vaudreuil. So like we saw each other weekends, maybe when I would go to Vaudreuil, and we just had different friends and we had different interests, and when we would see each other on the weekends, we'd hang out and we'd cause trouble, and still be like we'd be brothers, obviously.
I didn't know that though. You guys didn't live with each other during the week.
For a period, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, because I went to go live in the East End, and he was in Abbott, so he didn't want to go all the way to the East End.
Okay.
He did for a couple of months, but then he was like, "Nah, it makes more sense to go to Vaudreuil."
Okay, fair enough. And then you would see him on weekends.
And then on weekends, so during the week we wouldn't see each other at all. Mm-hmm. I would go to Vanier, then I would take the 470 here. So usually I get here around like 3 o'clock or 4 o'clock, depending how late my day was at school. And then after I would leave here at like 9:30 and take the 470 and the last metro, usually at like 11 o'clock, or I don't know if it's the last one, but and I get home at like midnight. And it was like right when I signed up for the year, my month was over. I signed up for the year. I paid for it with my own money. It was like the first big purchase I ever made. Fucking $1,000 for a whole year is a lot of money for like an 18-year-old.
MMA package.
I did the MMA package, yeah.
Like $1,250 at the time.
No, it was less.
900.
It was less. Yeah, it was like
$950.
It was like 950. Yeah. Yeah, crazy difference. Inflation.
Yeah.
And I signed up, and I remember the 2 weeks after I signed up and paid for the year, we were moving and we were going to the East End. And then all of a sudden, 1 block away, I was like an hour and a half away on metro, bus, all this. And then I remember like looking and be like, oh, maybe I'll change schools and try to get a refund, because I had like a 47-day refund policy. And there was a school, an MMA club, another block away from my house in the East End called Nest Martial Arts.
Ali Nestor.
Ali Nestor, which I mean, I'm sure it's great, but I'm glad I didn't I'm glad I didn't do that. I'd probably be speaking French right now. And so I'd be one of them. I'd be bottom of the barrel. All right. And
Man, blur that out, Emil. So you
yeah.
don't know what he said. So
No,
the
no,
yeah.
please keep it.
Save
Keep
some
it.
face. I'm gonna get like hate mail. Do people still do hate mail? No, they're just like cyberbullying.
Comment section
just cyberbullying. Yeah.
Nice, but you didn't go.
So I didn't. Yeah, but I remember like really thinking about it, and then it was around that time when Brian started like singled me out and was like, "Hey, let's start doing private lessons."
And October, we started working in October, and your first boxing match was in
we
April
started working later October. Right. The first time I came in was like September, probably 2nd. Like it was beginning of September, and I did my month, and then I signed up for the year, and then it was when I moved was when I feel like you sniffed it. You're like, oh, I don't know, he's moving. You know, I gotta grab him for privates.
No, at the time I remember just being like super depressed.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, okay, if I just focus, like if I'm self-centered, I'm gonna be more depressed.
Yeah.
I need to help somebody else.
Yeah. Nice. Yeah.
So my memory of it at the time was you were very much the karate teacher at the time.
The kids,
yeah. So like when I started, we had a boxing.
I didn't run any actual.
Yeah, exactly. We had the boxing class, which was run by Coach James, and we had kickboxing run by Jesse, and you and Sensei James would teach the kids. And so to me, you were the karate teacher until I started doing sparring nights. Yeah. Because then sparring nights, that's when you would corner. Yeah. And then I remember you were like, hey, let's start doing privates. And I remember at the time you started doing privates with 2 or 3 other people.
You were my second.
Jethro maybe
Jethro was the first one, yeah.
So same time. Still around the same time.
Like a few weeks apart.
A couple weeks after, yeah. And then and I remember you told me like I want to build like a small team and you know and I was like, sure.
Boom. So that leads to within a few months he had like after you picked him up, he had his first fight in boxing.
No. 9 months.
It was less.
No, we started doing privates in October. My first boxing fight was it was May. Yeah, my first boxing win was September. Yeah. So May. So about 6 months.
6 months.
Yeah, we did Imperium Cup.
But your amateur boxing story is actually sick from like because of the first guy you fought.
Yeah. So we did Imperium Cup, and I fought this guy.
Charles.
Fuck, I knew you remember.
Because I hated him.
Charles. And first
Jonquière.
Something like that.
Like hours away.
Yeah. And I remember he had Imperium Cup was 0 to 5 fights, and he had 4 fights. So in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm fighting like the guy who's at the end of his ability to do this division. You know, like
it was a tournament setting, so you don't really know.
Yeah, you have no idea. Yeah. I was completely green, like brand new. And then so we show up to Imperium Cup, and I remember being shocked by how fast it was all happening. Because like, other people fighting that day? Was Mandy fighting? No, I don't think so. Not this one.
Day.
It was another. It was Silver Gloves. But so anyways, Imperium.
No, Mandy fought that day.
That it was. She won. That's true. She won the trophy. Anyways, so I remember going and we're like, from the time I put the wraps on to the time I was in the ring, felt like a minute, like 2 minutes, and it probably was very short because we were like we didn't know what was going on, moving very fast.
Yeah.
And then so I remember getting in the ring, and then because it's a tournament and they move quick, they don't do the whole bring you to the middle. And when we were preparing in class, Coach James would always be like, okay, they're going to tell you come to the middle. They're going to tell you the rules, touch gloves. So I'm ahead, and he's like, so we get in the ring, and I'm like kind of like a lost puppy, like looking around, and he goes, fight. And I'm like, oh shit. Fuck. And then I scramble. And I remember I had a plan to like run up to him, you know? Like, I don't know. I thought that'd be cool.
You would do that back then.
Yeah. And so I like scrambled to go run up to him, but I was and then within a second, the round was over. And I was like, fuck, what happened? The round's over. And I get back to the back. I remember I wasn't even tired. Like I get back, I was not breathing heavy. I think I was just like frozen, you know? Second round, same thing. And then in between the second and third round, I think it was Coach James that told me, being like, you're down 2 rounds, because they would tell us the score in between rounds. He goes, okay, you're down 2 rounds. You have to knock him down or knock him out to win. And then after I was like, I don't want to fucking lose. And I kind of like snapped out of it. And I got the better of him in that third. I'm pretty sure I won that. On paper, I won that third round.
Yeah, my memory was like sitting on the edge of the ring.
Yeah.
And just seeing his mouthpiece just.
Yeah, it was the left hook. Yes.
Yeah.
He was like charging me. I went bang. That was like probably the first time I landed a clean punch. Like realistically in sparring, we'd go light, you know, bang. And I remember I knocked his mouthpiece out, and they couldn't find it. They were like looking through the benches to go
it
find
went
it.
flying.
Yeah.
It didn't just plop to the ground.
Yeah.
It sailed through the air.
And I remember I hit him with one of like, I did like an exact drill that we used to do, Coach James, were like in, out, bang, bang. And then the one that we did, like rolling under it. And I remember like feeling it, like, oh, I've got it. I'm in it, you know?
Yeah.
And then, the round's over. I didn't have enough time. I lost, obviously. And then I did a bunch of amateur fights after that. I think I won all of them. After that, I won like 3 or 4 in a row. And then I met him again at Silver Gloves. And this was a big one. I'm like, oh, I'm fighting the same guy. First fight at Silver Gloves. It's another tournament. Now I've got like 5 fights. He had like 9 fights, I think, at the time or something like that. I think Silver Gloves is 10 fights and under or 12 fights and under. And so he had more fights. I had more fights. And I was extremely nervous. We went all the way to Quebec City. We had 2 other fighters fighting, or 1 other fighter, I think, just Lissa.
Yeah.
And then so we start the first round with him again, the same guy. So he's the only person I've ever lost to. And I not only did I win my last few fights, but I won them very decisively. Like I smoked people. I was taking angles, XYZ. And then I get back to this guy, and the round starts. The first 40 seconds might have been like the worst beating I ever put on somebody. Like I was cracking him. I was getting behind him. I was shovel hooking him from like behind. Like the ref separated us because I was behind him. Bang, bang. He didn't land a single punch until I did like a crossover with the right hand, and he placed the right hand right on my chin, and he knocked me down. It was the first punch he landed. I guarantee if you had that tape.
Yeah, he threw. You stepped back, but he jumped in too quick.
Yes,
so
exactly.
He felt you.
Yeah, he pushed. I stepped out, but I jumped in with my right hand because I had momentum, and I was blinded by it a little bit. Boom! He hit me. He sat me down.
You did a back roll.
I did a back roll. Yeah, so I rolled, and then in my head was my training, which was show the refs that you're okay. You know what I mean? Like you have to show, especially at tournaments, because at tournaments they call it quick. So I bounced back up. Like I rolled, I bounced back up, and then I went like this to the ref. But the thing is, I was dizzy, and because I got up too quick, I stumbled. And then the ref called it right away. But truly, if he had given me an 8 count, I would have been fine.
Yeah.
But that's the rule set. It's a tournament, you can't get hurt. You get hurt, they pull you out because you got to fight the next day. So I wasn't upset at like the ref making the call. He deserved the victory. He knocked me down, but bro, I've lost a bunch of times. That was one of the 2 losses that stung me the most.
Because you were beating him hard.
Because I was beating him, and it was not just that, but we knew that that he was in my division for like almost 6 weeks prior. And then a week prior, we knew that I was fighting him. So it was like the amount of stress of buildup of like, this is the only guy who's beat me. And I beat him in the 3rd round of our first fight. So I was training like a maniac. And then he fucking caught me. And bro, I'm telling you, it was like the worst beating I put. I was doing like some Lomachenko shit. Like I was behind him, and then he'd spin, and I go on the other side, crack, crack, crack. Oh, it's crazy.
So it was the first time you like trained hard for a fight but lost. Like just committing.
Yeah, exactly. Even Imperium Cup wasn't really like, there's obviously even all my boxing fights, there was never really like a camp. I was just training and I'd fight. And that week for Silver Gloves, I fought the week before.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I fought 1 week before at Silver Gloves. So there were Silver Gloves. It was May 21st.
Is that when you rematched the tall dude? It was your second fight?
Yes, correct. So it was another rematch. Yeah. So yeah, Silver Gloves was May 21st. And then May, I think it was like 17th. I remember these dates because there was someone's birthday on May 21st at the time. And I was fighting on her birthday. And then the week before I fought also. And I won, and it was a tall guy who missed weight by like 14 pounds.
Yeah, he had the growth spurt.
Yeah.
You fought him as a kid. He had the growth spurt.
So he was another guy that I fought twice. The first time I fought him, I beat him. He was like 6'2", maybe. I'm 5'9" for context. Realistically 5'8", but 5'9" in Air Forces. And so I fought him the first time. I remember this guy was like 6'2". I remember walking out. And I see how tall he was, because you never know who you're fighting in boxing. It's like a surprise. You don't do weigh-ins, nothing. It's like and then I go, oh, he's tall. And then was it you or James that smacked me? It was you.
I think it was before the walk-in.
Yeah, it was before. It was as we like approaching the walk-in, and I see him across.
Because I went to the bathroom and I saw your guy, and I was like, oh, let me just let Scott know he's tall. And then you deflated a bit. I was like, no, don't deflate.
Did you smack me?
He did.
You did. I'm pretty sure you went like.
You're thinking about the in-house show.
Okay. So a little table that one. Yeah. I don't remember that too well. But yeah,
we'll
talk about I deflated. Like, hey, you're like, what the fuck? Can't deflate? Oh, he checked. Get excited, you know? Yeah, he checked me. He did check me. And then so that was my first boxing win.
Yeah.
I smoked him. And then I fought him again 3 fights later. And we didn't ask about weight. We didn't ask about anything because we assumed it was the same guy. But he had like a growth spurt.
Like, I'm gonna make the same weight.
Yeah, same weight. It was 132 at the time, which is insane to think about that I didn't have to cut. I would just show up at 132. No cut, nothing. Bro, that win at September, I went out like the night before and like ate a bunch of food. And because I was nervous, so I went out with my friends, you know?
You said I won't do it, but then you're with
I was like, I'm gonna go out, but I'm not gonna have any drinks, you know? But then I had some drinks, I ate, whatever. And because I was nervous, I wanted to be with my friends, you know?
Yeah.
Anyways, so then I fight him again 4 fights later, and he was like 14 pounds overweight. Because he had like a crazy growth spurt, I guess. So he was like 145, 146. I was obviously 132. And then they were like, do you still want to take it? I'm like, yeah, of course. You know, I came all the way here. And then I still beat him. But it was closer, that one. That one it was closer. Yeah, he improved a lot. I mean, size, obviously, but he improved a lot. And that was a week before Silver Gloves. So I was riding this crazy high going into Silver Gloves. Like, I felt untouchable. And I was like becoming the better boxer in the gym. Like, most of the guys who were above me kind of like were either phasing out or I was surpassing them. So I truly felt like untouchable. And I was winning, better guy in the gym. And then I start the round and I'm smoking this guy. And then punk! And just like reality sets in. I'm like stumbling. And then, yeah, that was a tough night.
I think you just reminded me why I recruited you to start working with me.
Yeah.
I think it was a sparring night. And then, so then after Coach James, you know, he was like, oh, let's see who's a dog, right? So everybody sparred. And he said, okay, now it was your first with the guy Charles. Remember Charles?
Yes. Yeah. We was the first person I ever sparred with.
Yeah, he went like crazy. I think he was as scared as you.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, he just like channeled it into aggression. And you were like sparring for your life. And then what was it? And he said, okay, whoever sparred, stick around. We're going to do box jumps. Yeah. And then you and Charles were the only two that stays. And I felt like he wasn't going to stay. But you said, no, I'm going to do it. No hesitation.
Yeah.
And then, and he was like, oh, shit, I got to do it. And then you were the only two that stayed.
Yeah.
And jumped there.
Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah.
Oh, I love doing those box jumps at the end. I don't know, something about like slamming box jumps after sparring with some hairs on your chest.
The extra work, yeah.
Back in the day, I had my little like rat tail ponytail.
Yeah.
I had my hair was shaved, and I had this little ponytail. I weighed 129 pounds, and I had this bright orange shirt that said "True Beast" on it. Remember? I don't know why. Whenever I think about doing box jumps with Coach James, I think of that T-shirt and that just vibe in general that I had, which is just like cracked out white kid, which is like who just watched too much Never Back Down and like wanted to beat the piss out of everybody.
Remember during those box jumps?
Yeah.
It was like 20 jumps, I think, and then
no,
whatever's left.
20 was the goal.
15
was the minimum.
Okay.
For competitors, and then but at the beginning it used to be 10 and 15, and then we raised it to 15 and 20 within the minute for 10 minutes.
So we told you like, oh, at least get this number.
Yeah.
And you said, no, I'm gonna get some ridiculous number.
Yeah.
And I was like, no, you'll be able to do it, but then you got a few more sets.
Yeah.
But then you did all of them, and I was like, oh shit, this kid's for real.
Yeah. I remember one time we finished sparring. It was a big group. We had like a lot of the Filipino guys that were there.
Yeah.
Big group. And we all sparred hard. And we finished sparring. I remember I got beat up that day. I don't remember who. It might have been like RJ. I got beat up that day. Or Sean. It might have been Sean. Yes, actually. I think that's what it was. And I was frustrated, so we started doing box jumps. Basically, the way the box jumps works, for context, it's 10 minutes, 1 minute intervals. You have to set a goal of how many box jumps I want to do within the minute. So if you finish your box jumps, let's say you're doing 20, you finish your 20 box jumps in 30 seconds, you have a 30-second rest
until the next
one. And so most people, they would do 30 seconds on, 30 seconds off. So if they can do 10, if they can do 15, if they can do 20. And so this day I was like pissed off. There's so many people. We were all sharing boxes. And then the girls had to use a tire. So it's like, we have 3 boxes. It must have been like 12 people, whatever it was. And I was like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm just not going to take a break. I'm going to try to do 30 box jumps per round and just not take a break.
Oh, yeah.
And I did. I did the whole 10 minutes. And I jumped at a faster pace than everyone else. Like the whole group at a faster pace. And I just didn't stop. Just like over and over and over again. And then I was exhausted. I felt like I was going to puke. But I was like, I have to show these motherfuckers that I'm not weak. Because they just watched me get beat up. And I felt weak, you know? And then that's what I loved about box jumps.
Yeah. It was a way to prove to to prove yourself after you have.
And it's just simple, like it's simple. It's just you just gotta commit to doing it.
It's like you against you type thing.
This is you against you.
Simple and difficult.
And it's got like a really satisfying noise. Like a workout has to have a good noise to it.
The noise of grind.
Like tire slams, the noise of grind.
Or dropping the dumbbells.
Yeah, or like sled pulls on the pavement.
Yeah.
Yeah, good noise.
Like 100%. But then after that finish from Silver Gloves, you had stopped competing for a year.
I took a year off. Yeah.
So before that, so then box jumps, I was like, oh, like God gifted this kid with cardio, with the endless gas tank.
Yeah.
And he has the courage to find out like how far he can go, right? So I was like, oh, okay, damn, he's crazy. And I think during one of the in-house shows, what was it? I think you had landed. It was like a guy that would rough you up sometimes.
Yeah.
Mitchell, I think that was like.
Yeah. That was the guy who broke my nose.
Yeah. Did he break it the first time?
He's the one who
broke it 2 times.
Okay, well, the first time it ever broke, I got hit by a car.
Okay.
Do that side story, please.
Nah, I just got hit by a fucking car.
No.
It's not much of a story.
No. You flew.
Okay, it was a dark and gloomy night. No, I was like 13 years old, 12 years old. And and I just got hit by the mirror of the car. And I went like up and I torpedoed down. And I broke my nose. But I never had breathing problems. Mitchell was the first one. Because he would do this shit. So this is what he would do. He would do, I don't know if I'm going to fuck it up by standing. So he would do this. Like you tee off on him. And he'd do this. Wow. And then he'd do it. And then, the worst part was one time I walked in and he was talking to a beginner and he was teaching the motherfucker his move. He was like, yeah, I do this and I look really available. Literally word for word. And I'm like, but I didn't know at the time that was like a piece of shit scumbag move.
I thought it was a legit boxing setup.
Yeah, I was like, dang, he's really got plans and shit. I didn't know about setups then. But I remember, bro, he was like this, and he crack, and that was when he went crack, and he just missed.
Oh, that was
boom, and just hit my nose.
You were better off getting hit clean.
I was better off getting knocked out.
Yeah.
Hit clean, cracked my nose, and then 2 months later, we were fighting at the in-house.
Yes.
And
that was during sparring. He hurt your nose.
It was during sparring, and he broke it again. He broke it again at the in-house show.
Damn.
Okay, at the in-house show, what had happened?
Okay, yeah. So then mid-round?
Fuck that guy. If you're watching this, Mitchell, you broke my fucking nose twice. And I wouldn't be upset if it wasn't on purpose. I've broken some noses by accident. But harming a brother like that, that's crazy.
Looking back, thinking about him teaching it to
that's crazy. And he was like deceivingly long arms, very strong guy. He was really good. He was athletic. Yeah, he was very good. I'm obviously joking. I liked him. I like training with him. But like to break a brother's nose twice,
bro.
There's a line.
So then I think what had happened was that you guys were fighting, and then before the last round, you caught him with a shot to the body, and the round ended.
Yeah, it didn't even. Your body shot didn't even land strong.
Oh,
so just like when, it just like went unnoticed.
Yeah, but
and
you
then
had screamed.
Yeah, and then he said, "Oh fuck, I'm gonna throw up," and everybody's confused, like, "Oh, he like out of nowhere, right?"
Yeah.
Rewatching
he stopped sparring like mid-round. No, between
the round was about.
The round was about to end, and it was like 5 seconds after my body punch, whatever. Like, which 5 Mississippi is like a long time in boxing, and he's like, "Oh, I think I'm gonna throw up. I think I'm nervous." And bro, I'm like, "You just actually gonna fucking rob me of?"
Yeah, but it was your punch
of getting you in the liver.
Yeah,
like the golden punch. Yeah. And then he robs me of the glory.
Yeah,
by saying like, no, I'm just nervous.
I'm just nervous. so then Scott complains about it in front of everybody. I heard him. He's finished.
Yeah,
I heard him.
No, it was like, what was it? Because Sensei was like, he was reffing.
Yeah.
It was like, oh, well, just. It's like might as well continue. Round's done.
Yeah, right? It's an in-house show. It's not real.
Let's get experience, right?
Yeah.
And then the corners, you're being salty. You're like, no, look at him. I got him. He's finished. and I knew right away. I was like, oh, if he goes in like this, he's gonna get hurt. Like stepping out of it.
And then he slapped him.
Yeah.
He smacked my shit in the corner, right there, in that red corner.
No, it's okay. You had the headgear.
You went pop, and you went, hey, I need you to focus. It doesn't matter. And I remember just being like, yes, Brian. Yes, coach.
The reason why is crazy because anybody would think you were just like disciplining him, but it was you like foreseeing him getting knocked out bad.
And it was in the first round when he broke my nose. So that whole sparring or in-house competition, whatever you want to call it, I was bleeding like crazy.
Yeah.
I remember I took a picture in my in the locker room. I don't know why it's so vivid in my head. I had like a Vanier tank top that I used to always wear.
Yeah.
I got from Vanier, and I took a picture like this in the locker room with like the. I'm not proud of it. Yeah, I'm not proud of it. But I was covered in blood. I was covered in blood with my tank top with my mouth guard too.
Yeah, the teeth mouth.
Yeah, I think I didn't post it, but if I would have said something like hard work, or
Oh
something
man,
like that.
classic.
Yeah, I don't think I had the teeth mouth guard yet.
Not yet.
No. That would have been even better though.
I think his mic turned off.
Oh no.
Try to turn on. Oh, I think it died. Okay, it's okay. We still have this one is working. Okay. I'll try to
That
keep
was
it on.
too good.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then he broke my nose a second time in that one, and now I remember being like, the first time I was in denial. The first time he broke my nose, I was like, nah, he didn't break my nose. I was in denial. And the second one, I remember it was John. I forget his name. Yeah, that's what I'm telling you.
Damn, the car broke your nose once, and then
He broke my nose
No,
twice.
he
broke my. So Mitchell broke my nose twice. The car was a hairline fracture.
hairline. Oh,
Yeah.
Okay.
So it wasn't like a broken. He broke my nose twice, and then I broke my nose guaranteed another third time when we fought in St. Clair with the old man there. He was like 40 years old, and he was like 4'2". Remember? And he hit me. The only punch he landed the entire fight was like an uppercut, and crunched my nose. Like it was like a deep crunch that I felt.
Yeah,
And
la-
that
la
one,
Fania button.
yeah, that one broke a different direction than the other times. So Mitchell broke my nose this way. He broke it that way. So my nose now is like an S.
Yeah,
And
exactly.
because that one was an uppercut and just like a fountain. I remember they stopped the fight multiple times to clean my nose, and I thought we were like all worried they're gonna stop it, even though I was smoking the guy. He wasn't even punching me anymore, but it was just like emptying with blood.
Now, even your first win, there was a bit of a scare that they would stop it because of the blood there.
Yeah, but I had maybe had one nosebleed my entire life leading up to when Mitchell broke my nose. And the funny thing is that Shiloh, growing up, if he would jump on the bed, he'd get a nosebleed. Straight up. Like he would turn his head too fast, you call his name, Shiloh, and you go like this. And he started
and
like,
it wouldn't
bleeding.
stop, huh?
Right, and he would bleed for like minutes.
Yeah.
And it was like deep red, and it was like
Orange.
there was like the membranes.
It would turn
in
orange.
it. Yeah. We
like-
used to think it was parts of his brain coming out, like genuinely. I used to think like he was pulling parts of his brain out of his nose.
That's just how blood is when it dries.
It clots, yeah, whatever. Anyways, and we genuinely thought it was his brain, though, straight up. I remember one time it came out, I was like, "Don't pull it, you're gonna unravel your brain." and then now when I broke my nose, then for like a good 6-year stretch, my nose would bleed every sparring, every fight. It would bleed a lot, like Shiloh, and Shiloh too. When he started training, same thing. But because he always had nosebleed, he had it was something like his blood vessels were very close to the edge.
Yeah.
But he got his nose cauterized, so it doesn't bleed anymore.
Oh, that's what he did recently.
Crazy story. Your first win.
Boxing?
Yeah, because you guys are twins, right? So there's twin magic.
Yeah.
So then, what was it? Mid round, you get hit, and then you start bleeding,
Mm-hmm.
and then you had already told the fight doctor, "Oh, it's okay. Don't worry. My nose is broken.
Mm-hmm.
You know,
I told him before,
if it bleeds a lot, don't worry about it, right?" So then he remembered what you told him, so he starts inspecting your nose. The moment you started bleeding, Charlotte was in the crowd, and he just started bleeding out of
Yeah.
nowhere.
Oh my
Yeah, we
gosh.
had a twin
Telepathy.
twin
Telepathy.
Is
Telepathy.
the P first or the TH?
Telepathy.
Telepathy. We had a twin telepathy moment where he gave me a nosebleed, and then he started bleeding in the crowd. I remember my whole family was there. So like my aunts were there and my cousins, and they're like, "Oh my god,
Oh my
Charles' nose bleeding." And then when I won my fight, like the first thing they said when I came back was like, "Shiloh also got a nosebleed." I remember that. Yeah, that was funny. But that was smart to tell the doctor, which I think I did in all my fights.
Yeah.
I would go tell the doctor, like, "Hey, my nose is gonna bleed. It's okay."
Fair.
Yeah, it's horrible. Now it doesn't bleed as much. I don't know what happened.
Defense is better.
Yeah, I just don't. I just don't get it.
Say it again.
Defense is better there.
Yeah.
So then, after that boxing finish you had taken like a year break,
When I got finished,
Yeah.
it was.
and then
I took a year off.
and then you
because
started
I was pretty concussed.
and then you started kickboxing at Fight Quest after that when you came back.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, I started kickboxing. I did, I think, 3 kickboxing fights at Fight Quest, and then I started doing MMA, and I had a good little win streak. And then my first MMA I lost.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
won 2 kickboxing. Lost your third.
And then
Ah,
lost the MMA
yes.
after
Oh, I
that.
lost the third one against the Muay Thai
Muay
guy.
Thai,
Yeah. That was before I had figured out how to fight those guys.
Yeah, and then you had the MMA, which you lost too, and it was your first losing
Fuck, I
streak.
sucked.
Yeah,
I
was-
lost so much.
I think I think
two
it's
losses in a row. But then I think
It's because I'd always have a win streak,
yeah.
and then I'd lose
lose
one.
one.
Yeah.
And that was your first like
You did
losing
a-
streak.
You did a boxing tournament after that one, I think.
Yeah, I did silver.
Yeah,
I did
oh,
silver
yeah,
gloves
yeah.
the second time,
Second time,
yeah.
which
You
I
did
won.
great.
I won a fight and I lost a fight.
You got silver, yeah.
I have a picture of you when you won the first round of that tournament, and you broke your losing streak, and then you
The
have your
relief.
hands up, and just like the
Yeah.
relief through your whole body.
Yeah. I remember going to silver gloves being like, I cannot lose 3 fights in a row.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2 fights was my. I've never lost more than 2 fights in a row.
No. No.
That was my
your
only. That was my
losing
only
streak.
losing streak.
Yeah.
Ever. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, I'm not that bad.
Yeah. So then after that, because that's when I came in the gym, right? So then when I came in the gym, it was against you were fighting Adam Sako in MMA, and that was the only time I had heard of Scott losing.
Yeah, he
And then-
smoked me.
And then it was the silver gloves, which I didn't go to either, where he had won silver, and the finals was like crazy close too, no, right?
Mhm.
But then I haven't seen it. But all that to say,
The finals, like, I'm not one to say this. You know me. When I lose, I admit that I lose. I'm very humble in defeat.
Yeah.
All that
Right.
good stuff. I won that fucking fight. I won that final. That is the only fight that I've ever lost where I say, like, I'm pretty sure on paper I won that fight.
I remember
All my other losses, I'm like, even the ones that were close, I still am like, yeah, well,
You would
it's
see
my
why.
fault. I left it to the judges. I could see why on paper I could have lost. That one was like, I landed more than him. I was more aggressive, but they gave it to him.
Mhm.
So
Hey,
yeah.
You just brought back a memory. The guy, I think he was Muslim, and he had those
the beard
the net for the beard.
Oh yeah, dude, make you wear
Yeah.
that. Yeah, yeah,
Yeah,
You
yeah.
have to shave, clean shave for
Oh,
boxing
okay,
tournaments.
that's-
Yeah.
that's why,
Because
yeah.
he's Muslim, he can't shave.
yeah.
So he wore the beard net.
I see. And then
Maybe I
yeah,
wonder, why didn't you have a beard net? Because you just shave, yeah.
yeah. Well, I didn't have a beard back then.
Well, I think boxing had strict rules about shaving.
Tournaments, yes.
Yeah.
Tournaments, yes, but not kickboxing. Because the boxing fights I didn't have a beard.
Yeah.
Puis genre,
Just boxing in general. I remember when what was it? Jean Pascal, he fought somebody,
mhm.
and then and all they could talk about for the beginning was that how one of them didn't shave his beard, and it's like $1 million fight, so obviously they're not gonna cancel it over that.
Yeah.
And then they were like, no, it's bad because now the guy has something to focus on. They were like making a big deal about
Out of the beard.
the guy not shaving his beard.
That's the reason.
I think it's like a boxing thing or something.
Okay, I see. Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Anyways, all that to say, because I had rewatched the fight, and I just felt like the only excuse I had was that like, because you were more like pull dominant, you were using backing up to hit him more than he was. He was just like recklessly.
Yeah, I was just scared.
Yeah, that's it. But
I
you
was
were
just
like,
scared.
but you like, you
You know
didn't,
the big thing?
no,
Boxing.
the boxing final,
Yeah.
but you didn't get hit much.
Oh, that one. The
Yeah.
boxing final.
Yeah,
Hey, you remember that?
yeah, because I was obsessed over Scott.
Oh,
because he was like big brother of it.
Yeah,
So,
yeah.
Bro, I was like, boom, getting angles on the guy, and then as I remember, he would turn so slow.
yeah,
And as
yeah.
he turned, I'm like,
Pop, 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 pop.
like,
Yeah, okay. I guess
speed
it looked
bag is
bad
shit.
that you were backing up.
Yeah, because they
Yeah.
don't understand. That was the only thing. But
I
all
was doing like the mongoose and the cobra. I was doing in and out. It wasn't pull heavy. It was
No.
like very in and
Yeah.
out, but he might have been creeping, as I was doing it.
that's it. So
Right.
then that was the only thing. But all that to say, I had until that point, I had never, because then he went on his crazy win streak MMA, right? You had won your first MMA after that against the Asian guy.
Yeah, well, I did MMA, then I did a kickboxing,
Kickboxing.
then I did a few MMA.
Then there was COVID.
Yeah, that's a good story.
Yeah.
Where, fought the Asian guy from
Oh yeah, yeah.
Evolution, Marsh, BJJ, yeah.
But you were
Our-
sick.
For our backstory is that I don't have no recollection of anyone that I fight or their names, but Ria knows their first name, middle name, last name.
I remember the date of the fights.
Birth, he knows the date of the fights. He knows what T-shirt I was wearing, what color
Yeah.
my underwears
Yeah.
were.
The
You-
haircut.
You were his guy.
Yeah.
That,
To this
so
day.
in the warm up, was it the warm up area? You were kicking the tie shields, tie pads, right?
First. In the gym, you had repeated like multiple times in a row how, what was his name, the Filipino?
RJ,
No, he was teaching kids.
Shane.
Shane, you had repeated 3 times, concerningly, that Shane was coming to watch the fight.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then you remember you brought it up. You were like, "Yo, what the fuck is wrong with Scott?" You brought up 3 times that Shane was coming. Like he had already told me. I remember you being concerned about that.
Nervous or because I was concussed?
I can't tell, but it looked to me like you were concerned about him being concussed and not telling you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, and then in the warm up room,
Yeah, I think was it you had the ringworm or something that you
This
found out
was
after and it drained you.
yeah,
So
exactly.
then okay, so you threw like
Oh,
you
I
threw a couple good
remember.
kicks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So you kicked the tie pads,
yeah,
and then your legs just went, and you're like, oh,
Yeah.
I'm gone. I can't throw any kicks.
Yeah.
And then I think I was a nervous cornerman at the time. Yeah, I remember when you compete. I don't do this anymore,
Bro,
but
you go to the bathroom like 100 times.
outpace the venue
Oh.
to calm down.
Yeah.
And then
No, you'd be in the bathroom for we'd be at the venue for 3 hours. You go to the bathroom like 20 times. And then
pee and
yeah,
yeah,
essentially it was like, "Where's Brian?" I'm like, "Bathroom." You were
Yeah.
more nervous than I was.
Yeah.
At all my fights at the beginning.
in the beginning. Yeah.
So you went to pace, but
Yeah.
then he had told
No,
Sensei.
I was. Well, there was no area at the pace at Fight Coast. It was just too
Yeah, too
crowded.
Correct.
Yeah. So then, what was it? Yeah, your legs had just went.
I remember this.
Yeah, and then Sensei told you, "Oh, don't worry, your boxing good,"
Yeah.
just to calm you down. And, then nobody told me because to not make me nervous there.
Yeah.
And then I remember during the fight, I was like, "Bro, why?" He's like, "Why is he kicking? Why is he not kicking?
Why is he not kicking?
That's he's good with kicks,
Yeah.
low kicks at least,
Yeah.
And then I remember mid round, Sensei told me, "He's like, oh no, his legs are gone,
Yeah.
from the kicks."
Yeah.
I remember my stomach just
Drop.
dropping.
Yeah. No, that was pretty scary for me. So when we were warming up, I remember I threw like because I always throw hard kicks
kick.
on the warm up because I want them to hear it. Like
Yeah.
they're like right next to you,
Yeah.
and it's like I was throwing hard kicks, and I remember like sitting down and like my heart was pounding. I was lost, out of breath. I'm like, what the hell's going on? I'm like the cardio guy, and I told Sensei, I'm like, my legs are done. I can't do it. I'm like, I can't kick. And I remember like the panic setting in, and it was just how calm Sensei was. It was just like, oh, you just punch. Like, you just punch. Like, simple, one sentence. And I'm
Yeah.
like, I could do that. I'm like, I could do that.
And then,
And then because it simplified it, that was my first MMA win, by the way.
yes,
Yeah,
But honestly, because it simplified it to just boxing, which I had like already 8 boxing fights or 7 boxing fights.
Yeah.
I had a really good fight. I had good posture, good feints. I threw one kick the entire time that hit him right in the mouth.
clean.
I remember
it
and
rocked him too.
Kira missed it on the video.
Yeah.
She goes, ah! and
Yeah.
then she like pulls the video. I remember I was so mad at her.
Yeah.
And so I had one kick where I went bang, bang,
Step around
and I
us
went
to the
out
head.
southpaw as he switched, and then boom,
Boom.
southpaw to the head.
Yeah.
And it was the only kick I threw.
You hurt
Everything
him bad.
was just punches. I didn't shoot once. I didn't do anything. He shot once. He got me down, which I almost plotted him. And
Rip it.
Triangle,
Yeah.
armbar,
Yeah.
omoplata. Yeah.
I did that whole sequence because Brian's jiu-jitsu classes back in the day were just an hour of triangle, armbar, omoplata, triangle,
Yeah.
armbar, and I did the whole sequence on him.
Oh yeah.
And then ground and pound and round finish. And
That was your first.
That was the first time I
show
went to
you
watch.
went. Yeah. But that was crazy. Yeah, and I had a big. And then by the end of the fight, in the picture of the hand raise, you see a giant ringworm on my arm, which I didn't know I had it. First of all, I didn't even know what ringworm was at the time. But at the week before, it was like this, and I knew I had something, but I didn't know what it was. And there was not like we didn't have much skin infections.
No, at the
Then
gym. No,
here.
we don't get as
Here,
much.
back then, we didn't have any. You know what
Yeah.
I mean? Or like if we did, we didn't know about it. And I remember having like a little thing, and by the end of the fight, because of the exertion that I put in, it was like all my arm, and you see it in the hand raise. It was this hand up, but it was on this arm. And I was like this, and I remember seeing the picture, and it was disgusting. And then I was fighting a month later or 3 weeks later, kickboxing, but I couldn't train for it because I couldn't train. I had this ringworm, and it was like chafe. Oh, it was brutal. I'm not gonna get into details. It's not.
Muhammad.
Yeah, he
The
fought
next
Muhammad
fight was
Ruda.
Muhammad. Yeah.
Yeah, and you finished him.
Yeah, so that next fight was Muhammad. So I finished this one, my first MMA win. I had a ton of confidence. Then we booked a kickboxing 3 weeks from then. Not even a full month, I think. 3
No,
weeks.
3 weeks.
And so you don't normally train fight week. So it's only 2 weeks. It's only 2 sparring weeks, basically. 2 weeks of sparring. But I had the ringworm for those 2 weeks. And I had a pretty big fight the week before. So I didn't really want to spar hard anyways. So that fight I didn't train at all. I had the ringworm, and it's like, and the doctor told me like, because it spreads so much, like try not to sweat too much, try not to irritate it. It moves a lot. Like you irritate it, it'll never heal, even if I put the cream on. So I just wasn't training at all for that fight. And then I remember Muhammad was like a killer. He like knocked someone out cold, which is like
seconds.
Yeah, which like never happens at 135.
Like, you had seen the video, but you saw in this typology, and you're like, oh shit, it says KO, not TKO.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So I'm like, fuck, this guy's knocked people out cold. His last 2 fights for finishes. I was so nervous, and I didn't train. I remember being in like the locker room, and I remember you told me like, just have fun, you know, like you gave me like a speech of like everything, no matter what you did in the prior the camp, whatever you did, those are the cards you have, and like you know, so all you can do is just play those cards. You know, you can't go back and have a better 4 weeks or whatever. We didn't even call them fight camps at the time because we were just fighting.
We were just training all the time.
Yeah, we were just fighting so often. And then I remember the first punch he threw, how like slow it felt, and then realizing like, oh, okay, I'm a level higher than he is. That I was just like all the stress washed off.
Yeah,
it was like he threw a punch like this. It was like a gazelle hook probably, and you could just tell like his chest is up, his chin is out, his arm is straight. And in that moment, I'm like, oh, he doesn't have the skill set to beat me. He might catch me, but otherwise I'll be fine. And then I ended up TKOing him.
Exactly. Yeah, and then
that would be unthinkable nowadays. Like I think back then also inexperience with that, and then what was it? It's like, oh, he didn't really take any damage. He's okay to take a fight, but just the damage to your nervous system. Like I didn't know about that back then.
Yeah.
But now this would be like unthinkable.
Unthinkable to
fight that much.
To fight like that close between.
Yeah.
Even though you don't take damage, and ringworm, just the damage to your nerves.
Ringworm? Oh my god, yeah. And it's not only that, but like I did a boxing fight 1 week, and then the next week that boxing tournament the next week. I do that often, and because when I would fight, my seasons were shorter. Like I would do like 4 or 5 fights in a 4-month to 5-month period, and then I wouldn't fight for like 5 months.
Yeah, I think partially what it was too was I remember at the time there wasn't like that many shows for Fight Quest. Yeah, they would only do the summer, so you try to fit on as many.
Yeah,
and then during
in the spring.
Yeah,
in the spring.
Spring,
in the
summer.
fall they would never do shows, or in winter they would never do shows.
So you try to get your boxing matches like when Fight Quest wasn't there.
Correct.
Yeah. So that was our routine back then.
Yeah. So then after that, it was you took a 5-month break, comme d'habitude. You went off season a bit, and you were working plumbing and construction at the time.
Yeah. I started working. Well, I dropped out of college. Then I basically realized I didn't like college. I didn't want to do that full time at all. I didn't want to go to university, and then the career program that I was in would have been like a desk job of like I don't even remember what it's fucking called. Not an engineer, the person below an engineer, so like a technologist or whatever it is. And I'm like, the max I'll ever make is like 80 grand a year. I'm like, that's just not for me. So I dropped out, and I had the bright idea to go into plumbing, which worked out at the time. Like I went to plumbing school, and it was during that transition where I didn't take more fights because between college and plumbing school, I was saving up a ton of money, and I was working a lot. And and that's when I started doing construction and plumbing. Plumbing is my main job, and then construction on the sides.
Exactly, yeah.
And then I did that for like 4 years, maybe.
Yeah.
3 years.
So you had started that at like I remember you were working like, bro, you'd start like early in the mornings, you'd finish like early evenings.
My
and
days were 6 to 2 when I was plumbing, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m.
Yeah.
Which is honestly a pretty good schedule.
Yeah. But you would train in the evenings till like 10.
And then because I lived in Vaudreuil at the time, where Shiloh was, I went to go live there at the time. When I had a car, but it didn't make sense for me because I'd go work in the city. It didn't make sense for me to go home to Vaudreuil to like eat and whatever, and then come back to the West Island.
Yeah.
So what I would do is I'd go work in the city, 6 a.m. to 2 p.m., and then I would come here, and I would be here from 2 p.m. till 10 p.m.
Yeah.
Every single day. And then I'd get home, and I'd be in bed by like 11 p.m., and I would do it again. And I did that for like 3 years straight before COVID, basically.
Exactly.
3 years direct. Whereas every day I'd leave for plumbing, I'd get back, I'd get here at like 2:30, and I'd eat whatever food I had. I'd bring breakfast, lunch, and supper with me every day when I left my house.
That was during COVID. Yeah?
No, this was before COVID.
Right
before COVID, yeah. Right. So this was like 2 years before COVID, basically, and during that 2-year span.
That's it.
And then I would train the whole. And obviously, when I say training from 3 p.m. to 10 p.m., I'm not like fucking slamming the bag for 7 hours. I'm
take breaks in between.
Doing classes, taking breaks, lifting weights, whatever it was. But yeah, I did that for a little while.
So then,
and then I was competing too. I started competing again.
That's it. And then after that kickboxing fight, because that was early 2019, late 2019, you were offered a title shot in Quebec City.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was while I was plumbing. Yeah, exactly. That was while I was plumbing. It was that one.
Yeah,
I don't know if they
the
could see
first
it.
belt over
That
there,
belt,
if they
the
could see
fighter
it.
belt.
Yeah. And the guy ended up pulling out like a week or two before.
Oh, true. I didn't fight him right
Yeah.
away.
Yeah.
I fought the native
fought
guy.
the native guy. You finished
That
him in
was
like
like
40
20
seconds.
pounds overweight,
Wait, yeah.
and he was like had clearly never trained before.
Yeah.
I never.
And by that time, you had to actually start. That's where your body got to be bigger, and you had to actually start kind of making weight. You had to be bit more disciplined with that.
Then no, I had to be more disciplined with what I was eating, but
Yeah.
I didn't have to lose weight. I just had to not gain weight. You know
Ah,
what I
okay,
mean? Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
okay, makes sense.
So I just had to not gain weight, and
Hmm.
yeah, I fought that. Oh, I forgot about that. I fought in Quebec twice.
Yeah,
I fought the native guy.
beat him quick,
I beat him in like I think it was like a 20-second fight.
like 40 seconds.
Yeah,
Yeah.
where it was just like he had no idea how to defend, and I just like entered on him, and he turned away, and I just ripped hooks into him from behind, and the ref
came to
just
stop
was
it.
like, "No."
I remember he didn't show up to the weigh-ins.
Yeah, I was
And then,
pissed.
and then so we weren't sure if the fight was still on, right? But I think his team waited for everybody to leave to show up and say like, "Yo, we're like 20 pounds overweight," and the promoter was probably like, "Ah, well."
They didn't tell me either.
They didn't tell you.
That was
no,
the crazy thing. So they didn't. I mean, listen, I don't want to talk shit about whatever promotions, but like that's crazy.
But I remember after that, not wanting to go there again.
Yeah.
But Emil, he fought there recently, and I was like, "Oh, it's not the same guys, and it's a lot better now there."
It's a lot different.
Yeah, I actually want to go there more often now.
That was good. Well, yeah. So when we went, and also they didn't tell us that they told us they were real sanctioned fights, but they weren't. They were
exhibitions,
which they lied. They didn't say that.
Yeah, so you had to finish them to get the feeling.
But then it never went on my topology.
No.
But so anyways, so this guy, I found out he was overweight. Literally, I'm already in the cage. I had already walked on, and they announced whatever his name was, and they say coming in at 152 pounds. And I'm like, what?
Yeah.
152 pounds. I'm like,
Yeah.
we're 135.
Yeah.
You know, he's like 15 pounds overweight or however much that is. I don't know. And then he comes in and he's like chubby. He's you know what I mean?
Skinny
like,
fat
like,
a bit. Yeah.
Not even skinny fat. He's like fat. And I was like shocked. I was like, they didn't tell me this.
Because you would have accepted anyways.
I would have done it anyways, but like, tell a guy. You know what I mean? Like, let a guy know. You know.
Yeah.
And then and then I was just lucky that maybe he's good now, but back then he was not. Should not have been in there.
No, that's it. And then when you won, they brought the champ in the cage, and
they
they
did
promoted the
WWE.
fight. Yeah, and then they promoted the fight after.
Those Quebec City fights are such a blur in my head. I don't know why. I don't remember them well.
Because it was you starting to go to work all the way to Gatineau for a week and come back.
That was after the Quebec City fights.
Oh yeah.
But no, you know why it's a blur? It was because it was when I had started plumbing. Kira describes this time in our life as the dark ages. She literally, like, she describes this as the dark ages of our relationship. Because it was like I said, I would wake up at 4:30 to 5 a.m. I would go work, physical labor, not easy work.
Yeah.
And most days I would finish at 2 and then come here. The weekends and then 2 weekdays I would do like side jobs at night, and brutal side jobs because they're like disgusting work that nobody else wanted to do that I got hired for. And so I was just like in a fog all day because I would sleep like 6 hours a night, and I wouldn't sleep well because I'd still be like adrenaline from training. And I'd wake up in the morning and go to work and get like screamed at by these old sad men, francophones, obviously, no surprise. And yeah, that was like a year to 2 year period where, and it even shows like I don't remember those fights because it was just like that was like not a good time.
Yeah,
I was tired all the time. I was always in pain. That was when I first hurt my back.
Yeah.
And my back was like, I had the back of like a 90-year-old.
Yeah. From like lifting pipes and shit.
Yeah, it was, well, no, I heard it training with the guy from BTT. And then I had re-heard it. It was like, I was hiking up like a cast iron pipe. It was like a 4-inch cast iron drain pipe, like 10 feet long or 8 feet long, whatever it was. And I like hiked it here and just like my back went like this. And I was just like out of breath. Like I lost my breath completely. I like had to go sit down, and then my coworkers are like not even sympathizing, like, "Oh, you're young, you're supposed to be," I'm like, yeah, and like this is not supposed to hurt, and I was like, I was in so much pain, and so those were those times, and then when I fought that guy for the belt was when my thumb was injured.
Oh,
you remember that?
Yeah.
It was green. Oh shit!
So I was plumbing. I was working a job. We had these big boilers that we were installing. I think it was when I was working right over here. I was working right down the street. It was the best.
Yeah.
No, I was working at Colasat as the company, but we were doing a job at
the
Lisi.
Yeah.
No, not YMCA, the Lisi. So it's like anyways, we're installing these boilers, and The boilers have these big doors, and we take the doors off to work inside the boilers. And I dropped a bolt underneath it. So I'm going to get the bolt underneath it, and then my coworker, I love this guy. His name is Richard. He decides to start putting the door back on, and he thinks he puts it on as I'm like getting the bolt, but it falls off the hinges. It's a thin metal door, about like 6 feet tall and like 3 feet wide. So it's a big door, but it's thin, and it falls directly on my thumb. And at the time, the big bosses were all there. We were on like a mezzanine, so there's like they wear the white helmets, you know. And there's like 10 guys with the white helmets, where they don't do anything, just get paid a bunch of money. But like when they see an injury like that, they freak out. And I remember it fell, and I looked up at the guy, at my coworker, and he looked at me, and he looked at the guys in the white helmet, and he goes, and so then I like run to the bathroom, and my fingers just like oozing blood.
Oh, jeez.
And that was during that camp. So then I would tape it, and then I would train, and I would still work. And I had to cut my finger. Basically, at the time was like this big.
Yeah.
So my work gloves, I had to cut a hole in my work gloves so that my finger could fit in my work gloves. So then it was so dirty because I'm plumbing. I was working in like shit, and then so it blew up, and then it was very swollen. We did the fight in Quebec City. I remember being super stressed about how swollen it was.
Bro, the camps, you would wear boxing gloves sometimes.
Oh yeah, I would tape it up, and then in my
and
boxing
then you would
gloves,
finish the spar, like you would like not show it until the end of the sparring. You'd like go on the ground and scream from the pain.
Like I don't know if you've ever had like an infection, not a skin infection, but like an infection. It hurts, and it's like sometimes I would brush, like you just brush the table, and you get like nauseous.
Yeah.
And then
like out the finger or some shit.
Yeah, and then in the fight, I remember throwing like ground and pound on him, and I remember hitting him once and seeing like blood spurt, and be like, "Oh, I opened him up," and then just seeing, "No, it's my thumb." Yeah, and then I lost that nail. Yeah. Then I went to the doctor after the fight. I finally went to the doctor because when you're in the camp, you don't want to go see a doctor. You know, like I go to the doctor. I'm like,
even off camp, that was your personality.
Yeah, I don't like doctors. So then I go see the doctor, and she's like, "Oh my god, this is like brutally infected." She's like, "How long has this been?" And I'm like 2 months. And she's like, "Oh." And then so she had to she had to pop it basically, and like the tweezers,
take out all the.
I remember like looking and just seeing like pus flying out. Oh,
did it hurt?
Oh, it was one of the worst pains of my life.
Oh my god!
I remember she was like, "Are you gonna pass out?" And I was like, "No, just get it over with." And she's like, "Bro," she was like ravaging it, like, rah, 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 just like pulling out pus. I remember being like so violent in my head. There was like evil music playing, and she was like laughing. Yeah,
I still remember.
So when you got the belt from fighter,
which you won in like the first round by submission.
I was like a second left.
Yeah, right at the end.
Yeah, that was first round.
That was the belt. That was the first belt.
And then we celebrated, and I'm like, damn, there's like more good things to come. I remember like before that fight, I was like, damn, win or lose, I have to have a intervention with him. After it's like, oh, bro, because I would see your health, just decline from the plumbing.
Because he was set to fight Tommy Morrison a month later.
Yeah.
At Fight Quest.
I didn't know that was that close.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It was
right before COVID.
Before the fight, you already knew you were fighting him.
Because you got the fighter belt in February.
I don't know if it was scheduled or if it was just in talks.
It was in talks.
It was just in talks.
Yeah.
Felipe from Fight Quest, like,
exactly.
Hey, you should fight this guy.
Yeah. So you got the fighter belt in February.
Yeah.
And a month later, March 2020, that was COVID when the lockdowns happened.
Yeah, which is why we and Tommy never fought.
Yeah.
Like 2 weeks before the fight, there was COVID. Yeah.
Oh, maybe it was confirmed because I remember.
It was.
I
remember
being in camp and then I got the call saying it's canceled.
Yeah.
But maybe it wasn't confirmed that it was be with him.
No. It was It was in talks during your camp for the other guy, and then it was for the belt, and then you won, and it got confirmed right away because the poster came out.
No, there's no poster.
There was a poster.
It was because
bleeding.
Because the promoter had a cool idea because you guys were both in the wars. It's like Tommy had to beat up face and you had to beat up face, and that was going to be the poster.
There's a poster?
Yeah, but then
Tommy's picture changed because he didn't want a picture.
So you look beat up. And I was like, bro, it's awkward.
And he looked all professional and stuff.
Yeah. They put the picture of me like all bloodied up.
Yeah.
Classic.
Yeah. So and then it got canceled 2 weeks before the fight.
Yeah.
And you went to get the Notre Boeuf de Grâce right when it got canceled.
Yeah. I remember he called me. I said, okay. And I hung up.
You went
I went to go get a burger and hot dog.
Yeah. That's it.
Yeah. What was your first fight back after COVID?
So then we had COVID
it was you two guys.
Yeah. So we had COVID. We had COVID for a year.
Which is when I was in Gatineau.
Yeah, for a while. You would go during the week, come back on weekends. We train, and We came back to you fought Vince, Nikiforov, and then I fought my first kickboxing fight. That was our first fight back.
Dang, that's crazy.
Yeah.
That's not how I remember it.
Yeah, exactly. Fog.
Yeah, that's not how I remember it.
Exactly. And then
I was still plumbing at that time. And
yeah, hard.
For a couple of years, actually, after that.
Yeah. Then you had,
a year after.
then you had beat him.
Oh, because when we did that fight, it was not really after COVID. It was like after the first kind of like.
It was like a year after.
It was like, yeah, but then there was still another like lockdown after that.
No. There was a little lockdown, and then things reopened, and then we had the long lockdown, and then that was the beginning of that. It's just we fought no crowds.
Yeah. Oh yes,
Yeah.
we fought. It was in the private in G1.
À Vaudreuil.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. And then you had won that, and then you had to defend your fighter belt against Kevin Ostegui, and it canceled the day of or the day before. Shay doesn't even remember that.
Yeah, I don't remember that.
Yeah, you had to defend your belt against Kevin
This one,
Ostegui.
the fighter belt?
You had to defend it, yeah.
I don't remember.
Yeah, and then it got canceled the day before or the day of.
Yeah, I was in my plumbing fog.
Yeah.
No memory.
Because he was supposed to fight.
Steve, you were supposed to fight Steve Bissinger, but he pulled out, and there was Kevin Ostegui.
Oh,
Yeah,
it makes sense.
Yeah.
It adds up. I'll take your word for it.
It was supposed to be the
I
three of you on
remember
the
I was
card.
supposed to fight Kevin. Oh no, I was supposed to fight Steve. I remember that.
And he pulled out because he didn't take the vaccine.
Oh no. So no, this is what I remember. I remember I was supposed to fight Kevin, and he pulled out because he found out it was an exhibition.
Didn't count.
That was the day before.
He pulled out the day. Oh, this was the day before I got my fight canceled.
Yeah,
Hey, I didn't know that happened.
yeah. And then I fought
Oh yeah,
the light-skinned
you and
kid.
Rico
and-
fought.
yeah, but you were
Yeah.
set to main event.
I was supposed to fight that night.
Yeah.
Yeah. I had
Oh,
the picture of all three of you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Did I weigh in or was it before the
You
weigh-in?
no, it was because the Wayne was day of.
Oh,
Yeah, and then
oh, that's crazy.
but then
Dang, Kevin did me like that.
Maz
He left me hanging.
confirmed the fight for you a month later at MFL, and Kevin stopped answering and it set you up for you and Glusman, and you won the MFL belt.
Fair play.
He doesn't remember.
Okay.
And then, but you remember you winning the MFL,
MFL
belt.
was the best.
And that was
The
nice.
MFL journey was so much fun.
Yeah,
That
boom.
was the best.
Oh, when you won.
FightQuest was great. Like FightQuest felt like, I don't know. FightQuest felt less like I was a fighter and more like I was just fighting. You know what I mean?
Felt like tournaments.
Yeah, there was no like fight camps at the time. I didn't know what a fight camp was. You know, like it was just I was just training. We'd book a fight like a week out or 2 weeks out with somebody that I had no idea who they were. I didn't look them up. I never
wasn't
thought about
tapes.
looking them up.
That's how it was for amateur boxing. So we just kind of took that mentality.
We took that mentality into FightQuest. But MFL is when I started feeling like a fighter. You know, it was when we started like studying our opponent. We started like
Game
doing
planning,
fight
game planning
camps,
around
doing
it.
like 6 to 8 week fight camps for the amateurs, making game plans.
Yeah.
And
Because I think for the longest time, I think FightQuest didn't film their events. So there's no tape to study, so might as well just
Exactly.
take the fight.
yeah, that was it. That was
But
exactly
MFL had pay-per-views.
Yeah, so they had no tape. That's why. There
Yeah.
was no tape, so you didn't know who they were. You had no idea.
Yeah. I know.
But I like that about FightQuest, but MFL really, like, I look back on that and it's like,
The golden ages.
it was just so much fun. You know,
Yeah.
it was like no pressure. And there was pressure, but I was winning, so it was less pressure. And it was like I had my team fighting with me, like you guys were fighting. Sometimes we had 7, 8 guys on a card or 6, 7 guys.
We'd all win.
And we'd all get like 4 or 5 wins. Like to me, that shit was so much fun. And I look back on it. I look back on that way more fondly than I do like my pro wins. Way more fondly. I look back on the MFL days. It was just, and they were well run events in my opinion. Like yeah, he stacked a lot of fights on, but I found he did a great job. Obviously, it's not perfect, but no events are perfect. And for the most part, I was always fighting people that were good fights, and they were they're at
We're
my
legit.
yeah, they're if not better at my skill level, and there was always like the rankings and the shit like that, which at the time was very novel for me. You know, like maybe now I see it and it's very normal, but at the time, like having a ranking that I get to be on or seeing. I remember like at the time Liam Gallagher was champion,
Yeah.
and I remember seeing him champ, and then like warming up at our first event and like seeing him walk by and like getting butterflies in my stomach, like he's the champ in my division. You know, like that didn't exist in like the Fight Quest and like the boxing era as much. It did later, but at the time, even if it did, I wasn't aware of it. You know, like even if they did do rankings and stuff, I wasn't aware of it.
Mm.
So I look back on that time very fondly. It was very I thought it was so much fun.
Yeah. It felt more real, huh?
Yeah, it felt real.
Yeah.
And maybe it's also just because I was winning all the time.
But that's the thing. Keep in mind, we go through all this. Now we're talking about you winning your second belt. So keep in mind, until then, I had never witnessed you with my eyes lose a fight.
Yeah, I had a good maybe 6-fight win streak. At that
Yeah, yeah. It was like big. I was like, oh shit.
6 or 7-fight win streak.
It's at that fight when I realized, yo, I have with my eyes, because you had lost to Sako, but I wasn't there. There was a second silver gloves where I wasn't there either. But I had never seen you lose. I was like, holy shit! And I've been in this gym for like 4 years.
Yeah.
And I had never seen you lose.
Yeah, and you were good enough to spar with him and get brutalized.
Yeah, I was like
every
your
day.
main training partner and get brutalized every day.
I
Yeah,
remember it was like that was when Abu and Samir started training too.
that's when they started. Yeah, they signed up.
Yeah. I
And
remember
then,
like when I did lose my next fight, which is probably what you're gonna
Yeah.
say next.
yeah,
I remember them coming up to I remember hearing Abu didn't tell me this. He was talking to Samir, but I was in earshot. He was like, "Damn, I really thought Scott was untouchable. Like, damn, I really could not even picture him losing."
yeah,
And I guess he wasn't talking to me, but I just heard it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Anyways, I'll let you.
That's
tell
it.
The story. But
Yeah, yeah. So then, anyways, so he goes on this like a few years long win streak, and then wins 2 belts in the process. Then he's set to fight for a 3rd belt in the States at Cage Wars.
Yes.
And that was your first fight with, it was the pro cage.
Bare shins.
Yeah, pro gloves,
gloves.
bare shin. And it was against Diego De Jesus.
Yeah.
And that was your first loss in literally years.
I guess so.
Yeah.
I never thought about it that way, but I guess because COVID put a break in it.
Exactly, yeah.
But it was my first. I think it was like 5 or 6. It was probably like 6 fights if you include my kickboxing and boxing.
Between 5 and 7 win streak, yeah.
Yeah. So when I was talking about when the guy beat me the second time in boxing and he sat me down, that was the loss that stung the second most. The one that stung the most was Diego.
Okay? So describe like the prep into that one, the fight, and the effect the loss had on you.
Well, so for that one, you were injured during that camp.
Yeah,
so we weren't training. You had injured your knee. Shiloh was not training that much that year, I think, for whatever reason.
Yeah, he was at school.
I think he was at something like that. It was, Shiloh always had phases.
Yeah.
And so my main training partner was Brian, and
who
somebody
usually
else
never trains.
Yeah, and somebody else. I can't remember. Andrew, really?
Yeah.
Back then?
Yeah.
Golly,
Yeah.
you might be right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Andrew.
She was doing the team trainings. Yeah.
So my main training partner, Rico too. Yeah. So, and even like most of our boxing team weren't really boxing anymore because it was after COVID. Like we lost a big chunk of like our boxers.
It was me and you, like the competition team.
So there,
like there weren't any shows for like a while.
There weren't any shows for a long time. So at that time for that Cage Wars fight, like I didn't have many training partners. I had Andrew and Rico. Who Andrew and Rico at the time were beginners, and I had Brian who like strapped up, which at the time you weren't training that much.
Yeah.
Remember you strapped up and we would go to war basically every day. And and then when I fought Diego, he whooped me. It was probably like the worst whooping I ever got. Yeah. Whereas like he sunk me twice, he dropped me twice.
Yeah.
He was so strong and so clean with his punches.
Yeah.
And then again I had a great 3rd round. Whereas like it was like that same first boxing loss where Brian gave me that speech. He's like, Scott, you gotta step in, shoot in, get behind him, and choke him. Like that's your path to victory. You were close in the last rounds. Like this is how you gotta do it. And we started the round because Brian knew that I was too afraid to shoot on him because he had caught me, with punches. And I was putting him on a pedestal. I had fear,
Yeah.
And then 3rd round, I did exactly that. Boom, get in, got behind him, rode his back for a while, but I just couldn't
rear body lock.
Yeah.
And you put him down. I was like, oh shit, it's happening.
Yeah.
He's doing it. He's doing it.
Exactly what you told me to do between rounds. And then I slipped off.
Yeah.
I slipped off, and the commentators, I guess, thought that I was trying to go for a triangle. I'm like, why is he doing that? I was like, no, I just slipped off. I didn't have good back control then. I didn't have good back riding. And that loss stunk.
Yeah.
Like that loss, I was devastated. And I was so beat up. I was so swollen from the little gloves. He punched me so hard.
I think he broke your nose worse too.
Oh, the amount. I remember there's a picture of me like behind him trying to lift his shin, and his back is just covered in my nose blood, like just covered. That one was brutal.
So what?
That was the hardest I ever got hit was from that guy.
And that, bro, it looked like the way
him and Adam Sacco.
That guy hit hard.
Adam Sacco, yeah, he dropped me. He finished me to the liver,
to the body, with a straight, not even with a hook.
No, it was a hook.
It was a hook.
It was from the outside.
Okay, wait. Okay, why?
He was so good, man, back then.
Adam Sacco, yeah.
He's sharp.
Where is he? He's not fighting anymore. I remember Tommy told me he was sick.
He had health problems.
He was sick.
I saw him I say not too long ago, but realistically it was like 3 years ago. But he was like, I got my car stuck in snow once in the ditch, I was like fucking struggling to get it out. I was getting so pissed. And then like some guy walks by, he's like, "Hey, you need help, man?" I'm like, "Adam?" He's
No
like,
way, was
and
it?
he's like, yeah. And he straight up just like helped me shovel my car out and get my car out. And then I gave him a lift to wherever he was going. He was walking.
Shit.
Yeah, it's such a funny story. It was at the time. It was before my last amateur fight.
Actually?
Yeah.
Nah, that's
I remember he
crazy.
was asking me like if I was gonna go pro. He asked me to come on his podcast because he was doing a podcast at the time.
That's freaking
And I said
wholesome.
yeah, but then he never invited me.
Excellent.
Whatever. This was a fake invite.
So then, back to the subject. That loss, because I think like that's when I actually witnessed you go through like a. I feel like that loss had an effect on your character actually a bit.
Yeah,
Like you changed a lot even as a person from that loss.
Yeah, it had a big impact on myself, my training. Was because the reason I lost was not because he was better than me, and he was better than me on that given night. You know, that 100% he was better than me on that night. But I had the tools to win.
Mhm.
The reason I lost was the mental block that when he had hit me once hard, I didn't believe I could win, and the doubt crept in, and it was like that hadn't happened in years. So I thought that I didn't have that problem anymore. You know, I thought I didn't have the problem of like lack of belief or doubt creeping in because I was winning for so long. But it was never tested again, you know? And I remember like in those training camps actually thinking about that problem and feeling like I solved it. And then when he hit me and that doubt crept in where it's like, oh, I didn't believe I could win anymore, or I was too scared. I remember even at some points being like on the bottom, being like, oh, I could just let him like get my arm here and then tap and then the fight could be over and I could lose amicably because like I just want it to be over sort of thing. Which again, all that being said, I had a great third round. I did snap out of it in the third round, but like I had never gotten like rocked like that. I was almost out cold when he knocked me down, and for whatever reason, the ref didn't stop it. And so at the end of that fight, it was like a very sober realization that like, oh, you're not who you thought you were, you know. So I had to do a very big shift in my training, in just my thought process, who I thought I was, and I just like overnight changed the. I showed up to the gym. Well, obviously we were out of town, but we drove back on Saturday. I came to the gym Sunday morning. I remember I was so concussed.
Bruised
I was
up,
hitting the bag. I was bruised up. I was hitting the bag and my nose started bleeding because it was still broken. And when I was hitting the bag, my nose started trickling blood from the impact.
Mhm.
I remember my head was just like, felt like it was caving in because of the impact of punching the bag.
I would shake your head.
But I was like, I told myself, like, come hit the bag today. I'm like, I can't not hit the bag. You know, whatever it was. Obviously, it's not smart in hindsight.
Yeah.
But it was what I needed to do to become, you know, part of who I am now. And I'm not all the way there yet, but so that loss was like
the beginning of that.
Yeah, and it's just like what a lot of people, they reach those moments in their life where they're not who they think they are, or they're not who they told themselves they were, who they told other people they were, and they just can't face it, and then they just like go back in their shell and they have vices or whatever. And for me, it was like kind of the opposite, where I'm fortunate to have someone like Brian, who's never a yes man, who always told me exactly what he thought, even though like Brian was the guy who I'd have the best win of my life, and he'd right away give me feedback on what I was doing wrong. So I had that mentality already, and yeah, that just transformed how I trained. And then I made a rule for like in training, I was not coming here to hang out. I was not coming here to have fun. I remember probably for like the next year, I don't know that I walked in, I didn't
chit chat.
I didn't chit chat, I didn't laugh. I just came, I trained, and I made a rule that every time I was sparring, every time I was doing rounds, I'm the one winning. I don't care if it's light rounds. I don't care if it's I don't care if it's fucking drills.
You have to win.
I'm winning these rounds. Because what I realized is that like I'm good at winning when I'm winning. I wasn't good at winning when I was losing. You know, so it was like I made that shift and I became the worst training partner in the gym. Nobody wanted to train with me because if they're training with me, they knew that wherever they would go, I'd go one level higher.
Bro, those sparrings were the fucking worst.
Those are like when we started doing TikToks at the gym.
And it was you beating me up.
Just like ripping knees into you and then getting behind you and like lifting you up and just being violent.
Bro,
like, I remember,
for a year, all the posts with the JK's Instagram was him dismantling me for a whole year. It was like not fun.
Yeah. But it's what I needed to do to
become the person you thought you were before.
To become a killer, you know, like to be a winner. Like it's you could be the best MMA fighter in the world. You could be so talented, but if you can't win, that's the issue with like all these guys who are really talented. All of them have very fragile egos and fragile psyches because they're talented, so they don't lose a lot. But it's different to win when you're already winning, or when you're already better than the guy, or when the path is there,
versus like winning when you're the underdog, or winning when you started on the wrong foot, when you're injured, when you get knocked down in the first round, you know? So it's like, bro, the thought process I had, I remember when we walked in the locker room with you and Sensei, I was telling you, I was like crying my eyes out, being like, I don't know, I gave up. I thought I didn't think I could win.
You cried.
I had like,
I don't remember.
yeah,
Internally, you're correct.
yeah, maybe, I don't know. And I remember being like, I had just such negative thoughts during the fight, and that was Sensei who gave me the advice of being like, yeah, we just got to work on that. You got to be a winner.
Remember, remember we were watching the fight with you after, and then going through that sequence where, like, you took the back, and it's like, oh, usually all your wins are from the back. So then it's like, what was the last missing? Why couldn't you get under his chin, get that last step when you were already so close? And then remember you saying like, oh, your forearms were tired, and you didn't believe that you could get it. Yeah, but remember you saying nowadays, like it was too long ago, you describing how you were thinking, and I was like, oh, he doesn't have that anymore. Even when he's a wounded animal, he knows he can finish anybody.
Correct.
Yeah.
That's 100%. And I wish there was like a moment where I realized the switch, but I don't think it was that. I think it was just gradual.
Yeah, exactly.
And it was just like, I would become the most tired on the mats. I would work the hardest on the mats, and then I would still beat the fresh guys.
Yeah.
And yeah, like I don't have that anymore, and I think that's have paid me a lot for the rest of my fights and for like business and everything in general. It was just that I have that belief now. No matter how tired I am, no matter how injured I am, I just have this core belief that I'll still find a way to win. And I might not, eventually I'll still lose. And I might have another very sobering moment in the next, in the next year, the next 2 years, where I'm like, fuck, I can't believe you said that on a podcast, you idiot. Like, you're not even close to what you thought you were.
Yeah.
But as of now, like, I have that deep-seated belief that I'll win. No, I feel like, and this is nothing against you, I feel like I could take 2 years off, not train, and if we sit in the ring and we spar, I'll still whoop you.
Yeah.
I
but
feel
that was
that
the
about you.
Yeah.
I feel it about you. I feel it about Shiloh. I feel it about all my training partners. I just have that deep-seated belief that I can win and that I will find a way to win and that I won't lose. And that belief just like, when I start losing, it doesn't penetrate. You know what I mean? And so then I have a higher likelihood of winning because I'm not giving up. I'm not throwing in the towel.
Yeah. 100%. What I like too about like that chapter of your fighting career was next. It was you had to come back and defend the MMA belt, the MFL belt, right? It was like 2 months later. You had taken a break a bit from your head. Well, taking a break from competing. You're still sparring hard and whooping everybody.
No, I didn't take a break after I was sparring like crazy.
Yeah. From training, no. But from competing, you skipped one MFL.
You had taken a big loss, but you hadn't lost your MFL belt.
Yeah, so you had to defend it.
Jump back into defending it.
Oh, yeah, because it was
Cage Wars.
Cage Wars, yeah.
So then, but I remember in that fight, your first fight back, you won in the first round, submission. We had both won by submission that night. And I remember that was, to me, I kept it for me because I was like, oh, that's when I knew for a fact I was surrounded with like the right people. To me, it's when you came back in the back and you were upset. We were taking pictures, but you were upset. And then I said, but why? You just subbed him in the first round. He said, no. Because the thing I said I wouldn't do anymore, I did. Yeah. He just made a mistake and I subbed him. Yeah. And I was like, oh, that level of honesty, like being able to take away the glory of the moment, no matter how high it was, and recognize the truth. And you decided to take one last amateur fight after that just to fix that.
Yeah.
So that was huge to me.
Yeah. So it was like, I guess to expand on it was, so I had lost to Diego. It was like 2-3 months later.
What?
Where I was just like grinding myself down to as bare as possible. I was training the hardest I ever did. I was still plumbing at the time. I was still a plumber. No,
you had started with Embro.
I think I had just started in sales, but I was still working the construction.
Yes.
Because I wasn't making enough money in sales yet.
Yeah.
And so it was the hardest I was ever training. And then we show up to the fight with Patrick. And I remember in like the opening round, something like that, like something I missed. And I had that little doubt thought creep in. And then he went for a takedown. I guess he had worse doubt creep in. So he went for like a poorly timed takedown where he shouldn't have. because I guess I was sharp standing up.
And he was holding you on the fence. He went for upper body throw and pulled mount.
Yes, exactly. So but the thing was, I remember that's what it was. I was on the fence. Before he had put me on the fence, he threw a short left hook and he landed it, and it landed hard, and I got dizzy. And then he put me on the fence, and it wasn't even much, but I had like that moment of doubt creep in of like, oh, can I beat him? It was like something like that, like, oh, he's strong, can I beat him? And then he did a poorly done throw. I landed on top. I opportunistic threw in a choke, and I won. And you're right, I didn't celebrate that fight. I didn't even celebrate after the win. Like I didn't scream, I didn't raise my hand.
Nothing.
Because I was just like so disappointed. I was like, fuck. I thought I fixed this. Like I've spent months, which now in hindsight is so funny. It's like I spent 2 months fixing. Like that's like an internal problem. That shit takes decades to fix.
Exactly. Yeah.
In most cases, But like I was,
But it was sick to me. But c'est vraiment un moment that kept to me because it painted the picture of genre. Because like you said, it's unrealistic. You thought you were gonna fix it in 2 months.
Yeah.
But just how much just deciding to expect that out of yourself. Yeah. That's when I was like, oh, okay. Because that's what painted the picture for me too, where oh, this is the kind of man I need to become too, tu vois?
That's why it bothers me so much when in those amateur fights, and I don't want to say it bothers me because I respect everybody that, dedicates their life to this and fights. Not easy, but it disappoints me so much when there's guys who say they want to be a world champion or say they want to make it to the UFC, and then they do amateur fights, and they clearly have a bad performance. They check out, they give up, or they have a lot of moments where they give up. They have a lot of moments where they let the time go on the clock. Yeah. But then they get their hand raised and they scream like maniacs. Yeah. And they celebrate like maniacs. Because then it's like, you won, but did you really accomplish? Did you really be who the man you say you are, or the man you say you want to be? Yeah. And it's like, but then the way they celebrate like that is like, no, I don't think he even knows. Because then you almost would have been better off if you lost. Because then you could have had that sober conversation with yourself. And even me, if I hadn't lost to Diego, maybe I would never have had that conversation. Yeah. Maybe the same exact fight happened where I had the same doubts. He beat the piss out of me, but the rest were sleeping at the wheel and they raised my hand.
Or you caught him at the end.
Or I caught him. Yeah. But I'd like to think that I'd still be sober enough to have that conversation with myself and say no, you're not who you think you are. Exactly. You got to work on all these things. Yeah. But maybe not. So it's like you're almost better off losing. That stuff always disappoints me when those guys discount that.
I agree 100%. I remember, funny enough, that night a guy had won. He finished the other guy, but he was having a terrible performance, and he had caught a choke, and he was screaming hard. And then I remember the first thing you said in that moment was "fucking monkey," and I started crying, laughing. I was like, "Why?" And then you were like, "Because it was clearly a shit performance."
Yeah,
and you're robbing yourself from the growth. And I was like, "Oh shit."
Yeah, at the time it would upset me. Now it doesn't upset me. I'd like to think I'm a little bit more mature, but it does disappoint me. It's but it's I also do get it. Is that you throw everything on the line? It's at the time those fights were the biggest thing. Those amateur fights were huge. Mm-hmm. You throw it on the line, and then it's okay, you scrape by and you get the win. Yeah. I do get it, but at the time it used to piss me off.
Yeah, I remember. But it's also you grew so much from it. That of course it'll bother you less now because you're at a higher level from it.
Yeah, I also just don't like being judgmental of somebody who's putting their life on not life on the line, but who's dedicating their life and their health to a sport.
To a thing.
I don't want to be judgmental because they could do wrong, but you can't put that much blame on them. It's not an easy thing to do.
Well, realistically, even if you get a win like that, it's okay to celebrate for a day or two. Yeah. And then you simmer down and you have the conversation with yourself.
That's it. That's fine. Yeah.
I would always have in my later years of fighting, all my wins would be less, and this is part of that same conversation. A lot of my wins in my later years of fighting, when I would win, it wasn't celebration, it wasn't excitement, it was relief of being oh, okay, I'm still who I think I am. Yeah, you know what I mean? It's almost like that in the later years, and I truly think that if I were to take another fight and fight again, I'd probably still have I need to work on that. In that it needs to be so concrete that I'm a winner and that I am who I think I am. That I don't need the fights to help prove it to myself. Yeah. I don't need the results of the fight to prove it to myself. Yeah. Whereas now I kind of do. It's not even the result of the fight. It's just the outcome of the fight of showing up, not having doubt creep in, being the man. Putting the hurt on the guy, and then even if I were to lose, at least if I did that, I would probably still have that relief. Yeah. Versus I'm still scarred from the Diego fight where I had all that doubt creep in.
Oh, shout out to Diego. He won recently. Yeah.
No, he
Oh, he won
lost.
recently?
No,
Yeah.
he had his pro debut.
Oh, he
lost.
didn't win. Oh shit.
Yeah,
Fucked up.
but he had a sick performance.
He had a good fight. Yeah.
Yeah, I followed him after because he had a sick fight. It was against a guy that was like 3-0-2. Yeah,
He's
and
awesome, bro. I love him. He changed my life. Like without a doubt,
100%.
that loss like absolutely changed my trajectory as a fighter, as a man, whatever you want to call
Yeah,
it.
he had that kind of effect on you. Big shout out to Diego, actually. Yeah,
True.
100%.
True.
But en gros, I bring that up. That was like big for me, like this whole chapter a bit, because I think I don't think you understand how much it inspired genre all the guys under you in the gym.
Yeah.
Tu vois? Parce que just like my last fight, how because I was on a streak of losing and then I had finally won to turn pro. But I remember in the moment I had one of those two where I finished the guy and it was like zero like happiness. It was pure relief. Because just understanding how like no, but the performance was not the performance you wanted to put.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
And then all the guys were able to like acquire that kind of mentality just from having the elder doing it too.
Well, it's like it shouldn't. The relief part though is still an error, right? Like that's still the fact that I show up and I do what I said I was gonna do and I didn't let doubt creep in. That's great. But then after the fight, if I feel relief, it's because there was still a small part of me
that doubted,
that believed that maybe I wouldn't do it.
Wow.
So like that still, which was like I'm saying in my later years, I wouldn't have the doubt creeping in the fights, but around the fights it still would.
Yeah.
So like that next level is just like be made of
exactly
fucking titanium, and it's like nothing gets in, nothing gets through.
Yeah.
I just show up, I win. And this could apply for anything, not just fighting, but I just show up, I win, I don't let doubt creep in, and I just do what I say I'm going to do, and I do it every day in training and everything.
That's it.
So
yeah.
that's very different.
Boom.
That's the next level, which I guess is my next chapter. Yeah. I need to fight Diego again so that he beats the piss out of me. He beats the crap out of me, and then now I can unlock my next level of growth. Maybe I just like every time I need to grow in my life, I just
set a fight with Diego.
And I'm just like, let's fight, bro. We're just like 90 years old. He's just like, I think I'm older than him, so he'll be like a little bit fresher.
Yeah.
90, and he just like kicks me in the head.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
that's a good plan. I'm gonna call
him. we should book a training with him. Actually, we have to.
That would be good.
Try to be in contact with him. Yeah. So then you had your last amateur fight after that. Did great, sealed the deal, genre for real. Yeah. That was a way better performance. And then you went pro, and you started to make your first real cuts to like 125.
Yeah, when I started doing 125.
And what was do you feel there was a difference in like the approaches to training and fights and mentality once you turned pro?
Yeah, 100%. Well, it's just my fight camp I was not adding any new skills. So my amateur fight camps, a lot of it was like completing my game. So like I was doing privates with Brian, was like, okay, well, we need this to complete your game. We need this to complete your game. Not like new approaches, just like completing my existing approach to fighting and like adding tools that complement. But when I started doing my pro fight camps, we weren't really doing that as much. It was more just like stay good at winning and just win a lot and then lose weight. So my fight camp shifted from being a complete fighter to lose weight. And so that was the biggest change. Obviously I had a great support system. I was working with Luigi. I had Jamie as manager. Those guys are like family to me now, if it weren't for Luigi, I've never even gotten close. But so I don't want to say that it was hard as if like it wasn't a good job. It was just I was heavy, at that time I was walking around at like 148 pounds, 151 pounds almost, so it was a big shift in what my fight camps became about. And
and then because then you said that too, the first fight it wasn't necessarily the performance, you were more glad about the training camp, because the approach was like a lot more different than it used to be in amateurs.
Yeah, it was a lot harder.
Yeah,
I would have more of the feeling of victory after getting off the scale than after winning.
Like
the winning part was already expected. It was like the winning part was already expected. I was already planning on winning. It was like the weight part. And it's because when you're cutting that much weight, like your mind starts to play games with you and starts to play tricks on you. So it was like getting off the scale, to me, I had more of like that night between the weigh-in and the fight was more of like a celebration than after the fight.
Yeah. Yeah.
After the fight, it was just like I was already expecting to win. I was already planning on winning.
It was the weight I was down.
And obviously, I was expecting to make weight and planning on making weight, but it was just how difficult it was and how much it played with my head. Yeah, so it was very different.
And do you feel it was the case for your second fight too?
Oh, first fight, your toes cramped up.
Oh yeah, well you're talking about like during the fight?
During the finish.
Back,
Yeah, well that's good. During the fight, I was like, it was my first rehydration. I'd never done a cut like that, so I never done a rehydration. And because when you deprive your body of nutrients that much for that long, when you start to eat, it's like you're a wild animal who is starving for so long and now is near food, who's expecting to starve again. You eat like a fucking animal. You know what I mean? You like, and it's literally like an animal instinct. So it's like, obviously, Luigi gave me this like perfect macros, perfect everything to a T. He even meal prepped for me after the weight cut. He meal prepped for me. He did everything for me. But then it's like, and he tells me, okay, you can have this many carbs, this many things. And I start eating one thing, and I just can't stop. And it's like an animal instinct, and I can't think of anything until and so
your hands had a mind of its own with it.
Oh my god, yeah.
No.
And so like between the weigh-in and on the first fight, the second fight wasn't so bad, but between the weigh-in on the first fight and the fight, I was so bloated. I was cramping like crazy. During what Brian was saying was during the fight, I remember I was like taking mount on the guy, and my foot, I don't know if you ever get foot cramps when your toes like separate. My foot started cramping up like crazy. I was like, I have to finish him now. I'm like, because otherwise I'm gonna tap out. I was like,
it was that bad.
Yeah, that's when I started throwing like the hard elbows. I'm like, I never elbowed somebody like that.
Yeah.
But I was like, it's cramping so bad, so I'm like, I gotta finish this guy. Let me try to cut him open, like crack. And then after he gave me his back, it's like you could see it in the tape of me like trying to stretch out my foot while I was on his back, because it was just like my toes were all in opposite directions.
Yeah. Oh my god.
That was funny.
Oh my gosh. And what fight was it where after the fight you had ballooned up?
That was after my second fight.
The second fight.
Yeah, after my second fight, I ballooned up pretty good. Well, both of them, but the second one was I just hadn't like gotten back into the gym right away.
Yeah,
I think I took like almost 2 weeks off, which is like the longest time I've taken off
from the gym
ever, probably. And I ballooned up pretty big. I was like eating like crazy. I was like swollen. I remember my fingers being swollen. Obviously, I wasn't actually big.
Yeah.
Like, let's be realistic.
Yeah.
I wasn't actually big, but for me, I was big. I was like 163.
Which you had never touched before.
I'd never come close. I never passed 154.
Exactly.
153 even.
Yeah.
I was like 163. I blew up pretty big.
Yeah.
But then I lost that pretty quick. Like I got back once I started training it.
Yeah, it shed.
I remember I couldn't even put on my shoes. It was like my Air Forces. Yeah, my feet were like swollen from all the salt. And I was like, I remember one day I'm like, what the fuck? Like, what's going on? And I just like whatever. I put my slides on, and then as I'm driving, I'm like, oh my god, my feet don't fit because I ate too much. I ate too much shit. But I didn't like register it right away. I just thought like something was wrong with my shoes. I guess I don't know. And I was like, as I'm driving to the gym in my slides, I'm like, oh my god. And I remember that day too. That was the day that I was like snapped out of it. It was about 2 weeks later. I was doing the wrestling class, and I literally felt like an old man who never trained before. I was burping like every second. I was like getting the hiccups. It was brutal. My stomach was cramping. I was in pain, and I was so bloated. Like if you put a needle to my stomach, I would have blown up.
Oh man!
But I wasn't big. Like I don't want to make it sound like I was fat.
No.
Like I wasn't big.
No,
I was just bloated.
Yeah.
I was just eating. I was like buying those boxes of mini donuts and just like eating the whole thing in a sitting.
Finishing
I
it.
shouldn't be saying this shit on the podcast.
No, fair.
This makes you sound like a nutcase, but
I remember because you weren't fat.
it was just 2 weeks.
Yeah.
Everybody, I wasn't like, I didn't fall off the wagon.
No, you weren't fat. But
like typical fighter stuff.
Yeah,
normal.
But like Patty Pimblett.
Yeah, but it was like
no.
But it was your first time, like one of your first times losing that much weight and having to regain it. So the animal instinct kicked in. But I remember, again, you weren't fat, but it showed that you were at a weight that you were never at before. So I remember you. What was he teaching? Grappling. You were teaching grappling. Because you have because you have a jawline usually.
Oh yeah,
right.
Usually.
And I remember walking in, and it was your first time like back in the gym, like your first 3 days back in the gym. You were teaching the grappling, and I remember you teaching like you were giving a warm up. like with the runs and stuff, a bit more conditioning. And I remember you stopping and like your mouth was like open from breathing from your mouth. And I remember looking back, and I couldn't see your jawline anymore. And you were wearing the rash guard, and you weren't fat, but the abs were sticking out from like your pecs. And I was like, holy shit.
I had like a pot belly.
Yeah. And then you came to us, and that night after training, you came to us like, you guys noticed like I gained weight a bit, and then we started, laughing because we didn't want to say it. Oh my god,
that must have been earlier. Then that was that was like a week later, probably.
Yeah, it wasn't 2 weeks after. It was
That's
like,
too funny.
That was hilarious.
Yeah.
Oh my
that was
god,
too funny.
So then, that was your last fight,
and I had just moved into my new place in Dorval, and I was like barbecuing every day. I got this barbecue. Nice. I was like barbecuing steaks like every day.
Yeah,
that's crazy.
Yeah, invited us over to every time we were eating, it was like big foods when you were inviting us over and
Bro,
stuff.
I had like a whole Rockaberry cheesecake to myself. Yeah, entire thing, like to myself, like fork in bucket. You know the big ones, like this big. Oh, it's crazy.
Oh my goodness.
Damn, I remember good days. Yeah, when I was like 19 or 20, or I was like 19 or 20, right? And I had fucked up a weight cut because I was preparing for a fight.
Yes.
Yeah, and then I just like broke my mind, and I kind of went on like a crazy binge. And then for years, I remember thinking, I was like, damn, there's something wrong with me. I must have been weak-minded or something, right? But then seeing you go through the same thing, I was like, oh shit,
it's a thing.
Yeah, you did the damage to your.
Yeah, well, it's a psychological thing too, but I'm sure that I'm sure there are people that could do what I did and that do what I did and don't have as hard a time as I did. You know, like
probably.
I'm sure there's a lot of room for me to have more mental fortitude in that department.
Yeah.
But I definitely struggled with the.
Yeah.
I mean, when I was in camp, I was good. I wouldn't cheat. I wouldn't do this. I would do the opposite. So when I was in camp during my cuts, I was not the guy who would cheat, or I was not the guy who would like break and then eat more. I was the opposite. I was the guy who would convince myself that I'm not doing good enough and that I'm not losing enough weight, and then I would not eat for 4 days. Like I was that guy. Or like go run an extra 25 kilometers on a Sunday night at 11 p.m. because I'm like, even though it's supposed to be my rest day, because I'm like, nah,
I'm not losing the weight.
I'm not losing the weight. Even though I was like, probably was on schedule.
Yeah.
So then what happened was like I would over deplete myself, which would make it much harder on my mindset, on my head. Because you're just your body's not in a good place, you know. And then I'd over deplete myself, and then it would make training harder. I would get injured more in training, and I just it's a lot harder.
Yeah.
You would put your body in survival mode and make the process longer for you.
Yeah, because I would overdo it.
Exactly.
But I was never the guy. It was only after the fight where I would lose control. Like that's where I was like,
fair.
I'll never let that happen again. That just like the thought of me is like a wild animal over my cover, just like.
When you described that feral behavior, like it brought back like memories
from when
and I was like, oh, that's exactly what I had. Where you just not in control of your body and you just start stuffing.
I'd like to think it's like there's like a real phenomenon to it.
No.
And I'm not just like a weak piece of shit.
No.
But I'd like to think there's a real phenomenon that when you deplete yourself that much for that long, that your body thinks it's starving.
Yeah.
And now it's preparing to starve again.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, it makes sense, scientifically speaking.
When
it makes sense.
My last 2 fights at 135, and I remember them being back to back. Because I always fought at 35, but in the process, I just got bigger naturally. You know what I mean? From training all the time and stuff. And I remember the cuts being like harder and harder, especially in the last 2 fights. And so I had one fight, which was like 2 weeks before with Sean Irving. And I'd rushed the cut a bit, and I remember that the moment I made weight, I had that same feeling. I was like, "Is that what Scott had?" After a second fight, I was like, "Nah, I didn't think much of it." That Monday, I was set to fight Isaac, at 135. So I had like barely any chance to like eat whatever I wanted. So I had went to camp right after again, from like 56 to like 135. And I remember like, as the weeks would go on, I would feel my body deplete harder and harder. And when I made weight, same thing. When the moment I started eating, I couldn't stop myself, because we had to control our drinking. We had to make it slow but sure.
Yeah, when you're rehydrating,
I couldn't.
You have to be on the nose.
I couldn't. like I had a timer that I had to respect the drink. I couldn't,
Yeah.
and Luigi wasn't with me, so I would just chug. But I couldn't for the life of me. If you put a gun to my head, I couldn't control myself. Yeah, and then
Just for the Isaac.
yeah, and then I finished the fight, and bro, within like 3 days, I touched like 162. Within 3 days.
Yeah.
But like same feeling. So I think it's a real phenomenon where like I think your body like expects like starvation again and it stacks up for it, you know? Because I made researches and then it was an actual fact where
It sounds like a real fact.
It
Sounds like
is,
some sort of
yeah.
biologist would say this.
100% it is. And then I remember also I took a break from competing a bit and I fought again at 45. And I remember being scared of dieting again to not go through that. Like it had a long lasting effect
Yeah,
on
I
me.
have that too.
Yeah, eh?
I
Yeah.
have almost like it was like a really weird feeling of like I'd wake up in the morning and I'm like starting to train again, basically, or well, you know, let's say I took a week off or I took 5 days off, but I'm starting to train seriously again to where I start taking my supplements, start doing my protein, my creatine, and I would like go reach for like my creatine and just get like a ball of like anxiety in my stomach, and then just be like, no, I don't need that today.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? It's like I still have that a little bit to this day.
Yeah.
Where it's like I'll like count my nutrients or my macros on like food that I'm eating.
Yeah.
And it just like gives me like this little ball of anxiety in my stomach. And I'm like, ah.
I'm telling you it's a thing. Like even during I had to open up with because I let Amer do my nutrition for my last fight because he was like starting up. I wanted to give him a chance. And I remember before we started the camp, I was trying to hide it. But then I sat alone with him and opened up. I was like, okay, look, yeah, I just have to tell you, I don't know why I have this thing where I have like an anxiety about like diets. Because my last fight, I was like super like, and then I opened up and we laughed about it. And he told me how I was fine. This one is different. I'm at a higher weight class. But it was for real. And as I was going through camp, it was like I had an anxiety about the discipline.
Yeah.
And I was making sure that like I was able to eat a lot more that fight. But I was always I had the concern of like eating. Yeah. And I was afraid of not feeling full.
Yeah.
But I was, you know, and it had a long lasting effect. So I really think it is a thing.
Well, we have the same thing where it's like we both often believe, no matter how much we're doing, we believe we're not doing it enough. Or we believe we're not doing it to the best of our potential. Like no matter, I could be in the best shape of my life, training the hardest. I'll still look at myself in the mirror and be like, "You lazy piece of shit."
Exactly.
You know, like, I have that. You have that too. I know.
Yeah.
So when you're cutting weight, you do the same thing that I do, where you torture yourself extra.
Exactly.
Because of it, you know, and you torture yourself more than you need to, and then that, it creates like that. I don't want to call it PTSD because that's crazy work, but it creates like that stress from the post trauma.
Exactly.
And like
I think it is
almost like a disorder.
Yeah. 100%.
It's stressful too.
Yeah.
And it's like from the post trauma that you had.
Oh, yeah.
It's like stress.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, bref.
Not PTSD though.
No, I think
that's for soldiers.
Exactly. We're not that far. Yeah. Can't be about food. But anyways, what do you think is next for you?
That's a good question. I don't know. I've been.
When's the last time you fought?
Almost a year now. Almost a year. 2022? 3.
Holy shit! It's already been a year.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, so it's been more than a year.
Well, yeah, a year and a bit.
I think your last book fight was a year ago.
Yeah. Oh.
Yeah. So obviously I did another fight camp, which didn't go well.
Yeah.
More long story short, did not go well. And I haven't fought since. Obviously the business has been growing a lot, so I've been working a lot. But I'm training a lot now too. Like I'm training every day and I'm training hard.
Trying to fall in love with improving again.
Yeah, I'm trying to. That's it. We had that conversation this week that, like, I haven't loved the game like I used to, just because, like, I don't know, you start improving so marginally every time that it's like you kind of gets boring and you fall out of love with it, and especially now that like I associate a lot of it with like torturing myself in these fight camps. For pro, that like makes it harder to want to throw myself back out of there and fight again.
Yeah.
But I don't think I'm done with it. I think 100% I'm doing another pro fight at some point, probably another few. I just don't know if it's going to be anytime soon.
Okay.
I'm still young. I'm 26 years old. You know, like I'm still in great shape.
Yeah.
And I'm just waiting for them to come out with a 115 division so I can dominate the one. I'm telling you, bro. They come out with what's it called? That one, strawweight.
Strawweight.
They come out with a strawweight. I'm number 1 strawweight in the world.
You go to Asia for boxing. There's probably a strawweight division.
They have for men, yeah.
Right. I'll start my cut now.
Fair enough. Okay.
Yeah. What was it? Last portion of the show. Memorable moments. Just check ass or whatever, right?
And your journey so far as a fighter.
Yeah.
Okay.
What's the memorable?
I like okay.
Go.
Okay. I'll start it, and then you guys fill up because you guys were there,
Yeah.
right? Yeah. So I was hanging out with my boy Elias, right? We would just goof around, and he would show me. He was a hoarder. He would like show me his trinkets, and he had a bullet from Paco. Yeah. Right? Okay, you know what story I'm talking about. Yeah. So he had a assault rifle bullet.
Okay.
You know, it was like big.
Yes. I remember.
Like it was like from a movie. You know what I mean? I don't know nothing about guns.
Yeah.
So then he said, "Oh, it's okay. There's no powder in it."
Yeah.
And it was like
Hollowed out.
he turned it into like a necklace a little bit.
Yeah.
And I was like, "Oh shit, it's kind of cool." And then and I would like fidget with it. And then one day I was bored and I gave it to you, right? It's like, "Oh, you like here, have this. It's cool to play around with it." You know? Like toss it at somebody and say next time it's coming faster.
Yeah, that's what you did. You're like, hey Scott, you talk to me like next time it's coming faster. And I was like, that is the coldest thing you've ever done. Can I keep this?
Yeah. So then you had left it in your car.
Yeah.
And I think your grandfather, he had like
Pistol bullets.
but like really small, like
Yeah.
not 9mm, like
I had,
smaller
like,
than that.
8 or 9 of them. Yeah, it was
Yeah.
like tiny little. My grandfather had this little, like, I guess, illegal gun at the time, and then when he died, whatever, we got rid of it, but we kept the bullets. And I found them in my garage one day.
Yeah.
I was like, oh, cool. So I brought a bunch to the gym to like give you guys some and make the joke of like next time it's going faster. And you want me to just tell the whole story?
Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So
Take over.
so then I was like, at the time, I was still plumbing or had just finished plumbing. So my car was like my home. I was like I said, I leave my house at 5 a.m. I get home at like 10 p.m. So if something went in my car, it stayed in my car for like a year or years. It was my golf. And we were going to the States for a jiu-jitsu tournament.
It was
No.
Cage Wars.
It was my
for
fight
Cage
at
Wars.
Cage
Yes,
Wars.
okay.
And you had just started selling because on our way to the fight, you had a sale.
Yeah, so I was working the phone. So I might not have been plumbing anymore. I might have just stopped.
You were
But I was
easing
still
out,
like in the mode where my car was still like had tools in it
Yeah.
and stuff like that.
It was the
I also
Volts.
had bullets in it. I had the big Gatling gun bullet that you gave me, and then I had like 6 of these little pistol bullets that obviously had gunpowder in it. And so, anyways, we're crossing the border.
So we go to the fight. I go fight. I lose.
Is it Joe
But
Nelson?
Joe Nelson.
it even starts before that because I
Yeah.
remember we're on our way crossing the border from Montreal to from Canada to the U.S. and Riyadh's like, "Oh yeah, they're." Oh no, we stopped at the border and they start asking us all kinds of questions. Now I've crossed the border like 50 times, and it's for me it's always been passport, good, gone, and I'm gone. And so they ask us like 50 questions like this, and we were there for like 20 minutes. And as we leave, I'm like, "Man, that was so weird." And Riyadh's like, "No, it's not. They do that every time." He's like, "Normally they make me step out." And I'm like, "Oh my God, it's because I'm traveling with a Muslim."
Exactly.
Bro, I was like, I never had any problems at the border. We were there for like 25 minutes asking us questions, this, that, the other.
Which to him sounded random, but like
I was pissed. I was
Yeah.
like, "Can we leave now?"
yeah,
And Ria was, and as we're leaving, Ria was like,
that's not normal.
"No, I thought that was normal."
Yeah, because I would always travel with when I would go to the States. I would travel with my mom, who had the hijab. So to me, it was common practice. To me, it was like, oh, they're just being like border
Thorough.
people.
Yeah,
Tu
yeah,
vois?
yeah.
It's like the procedures.
No,
no?
they straight up just
And I-
abusing us.
Yeah,
They're
and
just
then
like-
I was like, no, to me it's normal. Usually they make us step out of the car.
Yeah.
They didn't make us, so they were nice today.
Yeah.
You know?
So then we go to the States, we fight, and then on our way back, they stop us and they go, and now I'm kind of expecting. I'm expecting trouble because we joked about it. And they go, "Okay, I'm gonna have you guys pull up to the right there for a random search."
Yeah. No, it's how they have nothing suspicious. In the
Yeah, yeah.
car. And like many times.
Yeah, he was like, that's what he said. He goes, "So I just want to make sure you have no weapons, no this, no produce, none of that in the car." And I'm like, "Yes." And he goes, "I'm gonna ask you again." And he asked me 3 times.
3 times.
You have none of this,
You
none of that, none
sure?
of that, no knives. And I'm
There's
like, "Yeah."
no-
And he's like, I'm like, "No, I don't have anything." I was like getting frustrated.
Yeah.
And he's like, "You're sure?" And I'm like, "Yes." He goes, "Okay, I'm gonna ask you to pull over there. We're gonna do a search."
Scott goes, okay,
And
fine.
I'm like, "All right." And we pull over.
And as we pull over,
yeah.
you okay, fine, we'll go. And then we just go. Speed line to the border. Okay, we'll go. And as we start driving there and close the window, the moment we start driving, Scott closes the window. He goes, "I have bullets in the car."
I have bullets in the car.
Your stomach was sunk like a motherfucker right there.
Because he looked, I swear to you, it looked like this. No, we don't. Like, oh my gosh, we don't. And then he goes, okay, so ask you. He goes, okay, fine.
But I think
Start driving. I have bullets in the car.
The thing was as he was interrogating me at the window, I think I realized mid-interrogation that I had it. But I was like, I can't tell him I have fucking bullets in the car. I'm like, what am I? He's gonna arrest me. So I just doubled down. But then I guess I looked guilty. So they pulled us to the side. And I'm like, so then what I did is I took them and I had like a secret drawer under my chair. Not, I thought it was secret, but no, they found it right away. And I like threw them in the drawer, but I threw them in 2 different places.
Oh, you had them.
So no, I found them.
You found them. Yeah.
So there was yours, which I didn't find. Yeah. The big bullet that you gave me, which had no gunpowder in it, that stayed in my glove compartment, not my glove compartment, the console or whatever. Then the little ones, I knew where those were. I grabbed them. I forgot about yours. I threw the little ones under the chair. So then me and Rhea get out. I'm sweating. Like, I'm dripping sweat. We get out. Luckily, the cops are super nice. They say, hey, guys, just stand over there. We're just going to do a quick search on your car. It's very standard, very protocol. And they're like, where are you guys coming from? We're coming from the States. We just competed. And they're like, oh, you do MMA? We go train at TriStar. You know, they're being super nice.
Because I'm like bruised up too.
Yeah, he's like a little bit bruised up. He's like, wow, that's so cool. They're like being so nice as they're searching. And then they just stop talking. And like, we were talking, but they just stopped talking. Energy change. And they go, I'm going to need you guys to stand over there, turn around, spread your legs, and put your hands on the table. And then I'm like, what's going on? What's going on? I'm like playing dumb. And then the worst part was like, they separated us.
Yeah.
Because then they didn't want us to lie.
Yeah.
And I was hoping that Riyadh, I didn't know that they found both the bullets. You know, I didn't know what they found. In the end, we were lucky they only found your bullet. They didn't find the other ones because they stopped looking once they found the giant fucking bullet in the car. They're like, that's it. We don't have to keep looking.
So,
but that one had no gunpowder. So then they separate us, and he starts asking me like, "Where is it? Where is it?" And I was saying it's my grandfather's. I assumed they found the other bullets.
Yeah.
And then as I was saying that, I realized and I remembered yours. I was like, because then I think he showed it to me or something, and then I remembered yours. And I'm like, oh my god, Riyadh's gonna say a different story. Yeah. He's gonna say it's Brian's.
Yeah.
But you didn't. You said it was my grandfather's.
Now, my perspective, when they separated us, I'm like, oh my god, I hope he says the truth. And doesn't. I was like, I hope he says the truth and doesn't say Brian. So I'm like, so which one do I tell? Oh fuck. Oh, and then I go, all right, I'll just go with the grandfather. And then I just say the grandfather, and then we meet in the car. He goes, which one did you tell? I went to the grandfather. Oh. And then we ended up saying the same story. And
yeah.
Like, oh my gosh.
And they're asking me, and they patted us down, they searched us, and then they like emptied my trunk and they took up the thing, they took out the tire, like there was my shit everywhere, and they were nice enough to put it back at least. But then the reason why they didn't make that big a deal out of it, like they didn't arrest us or anything, was because they're like, well, it has no gunpowder, it was like a necklace, you know? That's why I'm like, it's my grandfather's, whatever, XYZ. I didn't tell them that it was a necklace one, but they had seen that, I guess, you know, and so they thought it wasn't a big deal, and they let us go. And I guess I don't know if I've driven across the border since then, but I haven't had problems at like airports or anything.
You cleaned that shit up though when you got home.
Oh yeah, I got home. I took those bullets right out. Oh man, but that was so funny. We were terrified.
Oh my god.
In hindsight, though, I'm like, what would have happened if they found bullets and like no weapon? Like, is that illegal to have bullets?
I think when you come here.
But in the moment, I was fucking scared.
Yeah.
We were terrified. It was just the energy shift of just like, yeah, we're gonna try. Turn around, spread your legs, and put your hands on the table.
Oh my gosh. You should have seen I was so sure.
That's the last time I ever crossed the border with an Arab guy. I'm telling you. This is just not happening.
Just how the guy
like
was
white people and Asians only.
Just how the guy kept asking, and I'm like, oh bro, like what is he putting emphasis on? And Scott is like, he's making the guy look ridiculous.
I'm just like lying through my teeth.
Yeah.
No, we don't have nothing.
You're making the guy look so ridiculous. And the moment we leave, you just go,
imagine it was that guy who searched us. It wasn't. Obviously, it was he would have been like so salty just because I was like getting frustrated with him.
We would have been in jail or something.
That's a good memory. That's a good Scott and Riyadh.
That was the golden Scott and Riyadh memory. Not to me was. I don't know if I can say that.
Different story.
Yeah.
What's the premise?
You don't know if you say it?
Yeah, now
give a short premise and then
the floods.
Yeah, you can say that. That's hilarious.
Yeah. Okay. So I used to live in the gym for a few years, especially during COVID. Right. So during COVID, I was living in the gym, and I was kind of the guy opening the door for the guys in the team to come train. So we were only a handful of people training in the gym, and so I would sleep there. And I remember one night, I don't know what had happened. It was like one of the tanks in the ceiling.
The hot water tank. So we've got in our ceiling there's a mezzanine in the hallway, and that's where the hot water tank is, and the main water entry is.
Yeah.
Obviously, I was a plumber at the time.
So then
go ahead. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm like dead asleep at night. I wake up one night. I wake up from like a noise.
Like rain.
It was like rain
in your
but
bedroom.
yeah, but it was heavy. But it was heavy rain. I was like, oh my gosh, it's raining so heavy outside. But it barely woke me up for the effect I saw. So I wake up and there's like water up on my ankles. I'm like, oh my goodness. For me to realize, wait, I'm not outside. I was like half asleep. And I look and there's water dripping. I'm in the hallway inside the gym and there's water dripping from the ceiling. So I call Scott at like, was it 3 a.m.?
No, it was like 3:30.
3:30 a.m. And I call him,
I woke up.
I go, Mr. Rodrigues, and you go, what? I go, so you're a plumber, right? And you go, what the fuck do you want? It's 3 a.m. I'm like, no, listen. And then I put the noise of the water. There's floods in the gym. And you just fly here.
From Vaudreuil.
Yeah. All the way from Vaudreuil. You got here.
Well, because I remember the sound. It was not a drip. It was.
Yeah, it was like
It was like pouring rain.
Yeah.
It was basically the main water entry, the cold water side on the hot water tank, just broke. And so it was just shooting out water, the city pressure.
Yeah.
Just shooting out
water. Because I had FaceTimed you.
Yeah.
Because you were like, what do you mean? Yes. And I had FaceTimed you. It was coming
down the bathroom.
Yeah. It was like a fontaine.
And at the time, I didn't even know we had a mezzanine in the ceiling.
Yeah.
You didn't know. I didn't know.
I was like, what's that water coming from the ceiling from? And then I look outside. It's not raining. I'm like, what's that water coming from? And then you got here in like 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Yeah. And and then we spent like from
4
a.m. to like 1 p.m.
It was just like the first hour trying to figure out where's the water coming from. You know, so I was opening the ceiling, but obviously it's just breaking. And getting rain because it's like the suspended ceiling, the acoustic tiles. And after I remember I opened one and there's plywood.
Yeah.
I'm like, why is there plywood on top of these acoustic tiles?
Yeah.
Like, it makes no sense. Normally it's an open ceiling. And I'm like knocking on the plywood. I'm like, it's hollow. There's something above this. So then I go to the next tile, still plywood. The next tile, still plywood. The next tile, I see an edge. I'm like, oh, there's a balcony. It's like, so then after we get a ladder and I like climb in. And I remember I have to like push through these pipes, and I see a fucking water tank.
Yeah.
And then after I saw the big valve for the water entry, and I just turned it off, and then the water stopped. And I'm like, oh my god, if I knew this was there, this would have been done an hour ago. We couldn't find it, and I wasn't a good plumber, so
exactly.
It was not like I could just solve the math really quick and do it.
And then the
cleanup, bro, we cleaned for like 4 hours.
From like 4 a.m. to like I think
sun came up.
Oh my god, we had like a aspirateur. We had a vacuum.
Yeah, we had the wet vac.
Yeah.
Exactly. So we could vacuum up we were vacuuming up the water
all the way to the gym area.
We had to move all the black mats. That was brutal.
Oh my goodness.
That was crazy that I got roped into that.
Yeah.
To be honest.
Yeah, and then funny enough, we went into the renovations like right after. We had painted and repainted.
Oh yeah, damn.
Yeah, right after. So it timed perfectly. But that was my craziest Scott and Riyadh episode.
Totally forgot.
That's a good Scott and Riyadh.
Yeah, that was my favorite Scott and Riyadh episode. Boom. So that concludes it.
Good podcast.
Yeah.
About, Scott and Brian memory.
Oh.
I don't even have a Scott and Riyadh one. I'm like struggling. I was trying to think while you're talking. What's a good memory I could talk?
With the flooding you.
What's a good memory I could talk about? I don't know, man. I don't have any.
Other than training, we didn't really have too many adventures outside. I think
we were always like by the book.
Yeah.
No way.
Well, the fights themselves were like crazy adventures, but
we've had some good adventures back in the day when we're like Jacob and the crew, and after we do the boxing fights, and we just get like hammered.
After party,
yeah. We do like our after parties, and we try to be like, we'd like try to recreate like Kingdom after parties when they're like doing cocaine. Which obviously we're not doing cocaine, but we're like pretending. That vibe. We're just drinking like crazy, and then going to get like McDonald's and Shiloh like spilling out of the car and like throwing up in the parking lot. Like we had a lot of those memories.
I guess
we're just not super proud of those.
Yeah, just like after parties of wins. That's about it. I guess.
Yeah,
that's all there was. For you too.
Yeah, and just like play Warhammer and Pokemon.
That's it. Yeah. Bro, you guys are boring.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now, whenever we do an episode, we're gonna have crazy stories.
Well, I guess you always had like a schedule, so we had like a allotted time to hang out, and then
Correct.
when time was up, it was up there.
Yeah.
Ah,
Exactly.
okay, I see. Fair enough. Well, that was a good podcast.
Alright, yeah.
C'était massif. Thank you, my brother, for coming.
Thanks,
Thank you, my
boys.
brother, for coming. The outros are usually made like not good.
Yeah.
They're made to be awkward and just
Yeah.
we
You,
just shut
you
the
want to
video
make
down somehow.
a
Yeah.
shout out?
Emil, stop it. Stop
Yeah.
MFL or
Huh?
make a shout out? MFL?
Oh, okay. Yeah, this one I'll clip it and put it on Instagram. Make sure to show up to. Is it at Crew?
Probably.
So make sure to show up at Crew Gym. Most likely, we'll confirm. We have Samir fighting, big fight against Omar Karaki. We have
Alex Doyle.
Alex Doyle, one of our main soldiers competing for the first time. David Folgado competing in MMA, and Sam Grew, who's seasoned at this point.
Yes.
Yeah,
Fights.
yeah, 2 fights. He's starting to get a big name. Make sure to show up to support the boys. And I'll awkwardly end the podcast. Thank you again for coming, my brother. Emir, please cut. Please, it's awkward, please. I mean, please.
Just
Just cut it
the
out.
film too long.
Yeah, exactly. The one Brian does usually.